I know. Did you hear what Paul said?
Please don't. No exposure. Announcement.
We've just been together 8 years, so we know you're married.
Congratulations. It's got to be illegal. I said after. Just the lap where you cut the got it in already? Leave it to fate.
I said, no, they haven't.
No, it's more than should be available in that market. Sure. Robert.
California doesn't sound the same when I play it.
I usually have out there.
One, I think, two. Oh, hold on, let me check.
Yeah.
Five people? Anyway, now you know what I've been trying to do. They don't want to come
All right, I'm going to call our September 10th, 2019 Macon County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. I would like to welcome all of you in attendance. Looks like we have a full house tonight, and I think I can speak for all of the commissioners up here in saying that we like to have our fellow citizens interested in the business of Macon County. So just a few rules of order since we got a full house tonight. I'll give a little brief pause at the end of each one of our agenda items. Feel free to leave at any time. I'd like to ask that if you can all please silence your cell phones to keep interruptions to a minimum. Looks like we have a big agenda and we're going to be here for quite some time. Restrooms, if you walk out the door, turn right, and they'll be down the hallway on the left. Any questions? Everybody ready? We'll get this ball rolling. All right. Any announcements? Mr. Manager, looks like you have one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just to provide the board with a brief update, on September 4th, Lori, Jack, Morgan, and myself met with Mosley Architects, who, as you all are familiar with, is conducting the space needs analysis for the county. They provided us with sort of a status update of what they have been doing and where they stand in terms of completing the project. Just like to report back to the board that I've been very impressed with the level of detail that Mosley has gathered during this process, not only on the physical condition of our buildings, but also on the usage of our buildings. And all that is going to be taken into consideration, of course, in their final report and the recommendations that they produce. But, you know, now with Mosley being in the final phase, they did report that we should be expecting a final product in November, and that will be, they wanted to get it out there before Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that, the holiday season there. So wanted to give us time to review that heading into the budget process. And just to add, you know, as I said, this has been an intensive information gathering process on the part of Mosley. Has required constant back and forth with Mosley Architects and department heads. They have had one-on-one meetings with these department heads, and just again want to thank the Macon County department heads for participating in this process. And I feel like, Mr. Chairman, that's just another example of how that, you know, these department heads and employees go above and beyond what's required in their day-to-day operation to plan for the future of this county. So I think, you know, really want to commend them again and recognize that. We have many department heads here tonight. So with that being said, that is the update. We can be expecting a finished product, and I think the board will be very pleased with what Mosley has to give us.
Any further?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remind everyone that the Macon County Fair starts tomorrow. Opening ceremony is at 1 o'clock. I encourage everybody to come out. We're anticipating one of the larger fairs in many, many years. This is still the only agriculture-only fair left in North Carolina. So we'd encourage you to come out and enjoy the Macon County Fair.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of information.
Sure.
Friday night, September 13th, is Veterans Night at Franklin High School football field. We'd like for you to come and be with us. Come down on the track about 6:30. We'll be having a ceremony there called the Empty Chair. And there'll be some information coming out over the radio, in the newspaper in a few days. So if you're a veteran on active duty, or if you're in reserve or National Guard, come down and be with us, and we would appreciate it. Veterans Night, February 13th at Franklin High, correction, September 13th, at the football field. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shields. Any further? I have just a couple items. One is I have a letter from Dr. Don Thomas, President of Southwestern Community College. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the gist of it is on behalf of the students, faculty, and staff of Southwestern Community College, I want to thank you for your generous financial and moral support of the college by approving our local budget request for the 2019-20 fiscal year. I'll pass this along in case any of y'all want to read it. I'd also like to comment on Derek's update on our capital improvement plan. It's been something that's been long in the course of making, and personally really can't wait until we finally receive that in our hands and have the opportunity to review it and make some decisions based upon some things that I kind of feel like where we've been kicking the can for quite some time. So I'm looking for us to have some good information that we can make some logical and informed decisions upon. Mr. Manager, I think we as a board are guides for you. We try to direct you in directions that we want to see the county move in, and it's up to you to run and manage the county and do that to the best of your ability. And we obviously put great trust and faith in you as the top of the apex of the pyramid of Macon County to do that. I want you to, as I feel like we're constantly on this board discussing our capital assets, our buildings, our improvements, our recreation, our baseball fields, our soccer fields, various other things. I don't ever want you personally, and this is maybe my own soapbox for the moment, to forget the most important asset that Macon County has. We're in the service industry, and our most important assets are employees. I am liaison on several committees, and I know several of you other gentlemen are as well. And I think it'll be prudent upon you to continually assess the needs of our county employees, and that making sure that we as leaders are doing our best to take care of them. And I look forward to speaking further with you about that. But again, I'm excited about the capital improvement plan, but at the same time, I don't want us to forget about our greatest capital asset, which is our I should say capital asset, our biggest asset, which is our county team members. So I look forward to continuing to work with you on that, and look forward to receiving this information as we move forward.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Before all rise, we'll observe a short moment of silence, and since I'm just yapping at our county manager, I'm going to ask him to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
If you'll join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to open up our public hearing Section 5311, 5310, 5339, 5307, and applicable state funding or combination thereof for our public transportation. Would you like to step forward?
Good evening. So this is the annual opportunity for the public to have input on our grant applications. As Chairman Tate goes through and discusses each of the, or mentions each of the applications, I will give you just a little bit of a rundown if you would like for me to, just so that everybody remembers what they are in reference to, I'm sure nobody remembers what all those nice little numbers are. Section, if you want to start with Section 5311.
Go ahead.
Chairman Tate. Section 5311 is for our administrative funding. We are anticipating an allocation amount of $199,522. There's a 15% match required on that. So the match, the local share would be $29,928. Compared to the current fiscal year, it was $195,439, so about $4,000 difference, $750 difference as far as local share goes. As I said, the majority of those funds go to fund salaries and benefits for the administrative staff, which is myself, the assistant director, and the administrative support assistant. We are required to put 2% toward advertising for the public transit system. And beyond that, we use the rest of the money to cover expenses such as electricity, phone, general administrative expenses. We can also cover vehicle expense, but there's only about $20,000 left there to move around, so we cover as much as we can in the administrative budget with what's left there. And that's the 5311 fund.
Mr. Attorney, do we need to approve each one of those individually?
I think the proposed resolution approves all of those at one time.
Okay.
If there's an inclination, if that's turned down, then you can certainly consider them one at a time.
I think you just have to ask for comment on each one individually.
Yes.
Any comments?
Kim, was these matches, was they in your budget?
Well, this is for fiscal year 21. So we're already looking at next July. Yes, this will be what will be included in my FY21 budget. When I used the numbers, it was the current budget as of that we just recently started. So we get a really early start on the next year.
Any further questions?
How were you able to get an increase in that?
It's nothing we did. They give us a 5-year allocation amount. They base it on, there's like $30,000 they give every rural transit, community transit system. Then there's a formula that they use, and it's formula based from that. So that's how it kind of fluctuates. A couple of years ago, it was like 189, 190. So it holds right around the same. Has historically. This is about what we've been getting for 10 or 15 years.
All right, 5310.
All right, Section 5310 is operating money. It's a little different. We are asking again next year for $165,000. There's a 50% match on that. We can use state funds. If you'll notice at the bottom, I did send that local share certification. It should be included in your packet. About $63,000 is what we've been getting in state funds for elderly and disabled transportation, which is basically the same thing as what the 5310. That's the only, those are the two criteria in order to be eligible for funding under the 5310. So the remaining would be the $19,500, and how I put it in this local share certification is we will ask for it as part of the county general funds. Anything over and above in contract revenue that we get obviously lowers the amount of general funds that we actually end up using, but I like to make sure that you are aware that should we not get enough in our contracts or our advertising that we've got going on the vehicles, then obviously this would fall to the county. The interesting part is we were getting that for a number of years. Beginning this year in fiscal year 20, we were only allocated a total of $72,600. We lost about 52% of that funding.
Wow.
It's been a hit. Again, preemptive strike was to start selling the advertisements on the side of the vehicles to try to have money to recoup part of that loss. You know, I reported earlier that in the first couple of months we sold about $30,000 an ad. We had about $6,000 in expenses. So we are still actively trying to sell those advertisements to generate that outside revenue without going into county coffers for it. But obviously, we can't stop providing the same level of service to our elderly and disabled that we've been providing.
Sure.
It's just that plain and simple.
Good job being proactive. That's one of the things I was talking about just a few minutes ago. Thank you.
So-
Any questions on 5310?
So that's what we hope to do with 5310.
Questions? 5339, 5339.
We are not applying for the 5339 funds at this point in time, or the 5307.
Okay.
The other is called combined capital. They will use some of that 5311, some of the 5310. They choose which pots of federal money it comes from. What we are asking for next year, we'll be asking to replace one of our LTVs, which is the small bus type vehicle. We are going to go up to a 25-foot vehicle because we need the seating capacity when we do the Appalachian Trail, when we do our senior trips. We need that extra seating capacity because the smaller vehicles only have about 9 seats, and you put somebody with a wheelchair in there, and we lose a seat or two. So, you know, it will benefit us to go with just a little bit bigger. It's only 3 feet longer, but we get more seats out of it. The other thing that we are asking for, again, it's a crapshoot in capital, is we're hoping to replace the flooring completely throughout our office. Nothing has been done to our office since we moved in nearly 20 years ago. So we'd like to replace the carpet and the tile with some laminate or hardwood flooring. So we're hoping that they will help. In addition to, if we get the funding for the expansion, which we still haven't heard from for this year yet. Local match on that's going to be $9,840. All of those local matches are listed below. You see that we are using county general funds for everything except that 5310, and that's about the max we've been getting. And again, that's based on the state budget and what the state allocates us next year in those road funds.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Kim? All right, we have one person that's signed in. I'm presuming you signed in for the right
No,
thing.
I think Robbie asked her.
Bonnie Gromlich, you want to address this? Hey?
Yes.
Okay, Broadband, I'll switch you over. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that would like to address the board regarding Macon County Transportation Program application? Going once, going twice? Sold? Okay.
I take that as a good sign. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close.
I apologize, but I put her name on the other list, I just forgot to scratch her name off of the old list. She's on there. That's a bummer.
Got her. Thank you. Any further questions? I'm going to close the public hearing, and I guess, again, you said we can do it all in one, Chester?
Yes, the resolution addresses all of the grants.
We'll get a motion to approve the resolution, please. So moved. Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shields. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that's
Thank
all I
you.
needed. Thank you very much. And I made it this year. I'm not via phone or anything else.
Oh, that's true. Very true, yeah.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
You left a drink.
This is a great thing about having people behind you.
All right, public comment period. First up, we have Norrell. I believe Norrell said was not going to speak, but was going to pass something out.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I do appreciate you bringing all these fine people to hear me, but I am not full of humor. I am just going to hand out something because it's a bit private. And as you read it, you will see that I now
You got more.
need to go stand over by the sheriff, because you may well be having him haul me off after you read that.
All right, thank you, Narelle. Bill Dyer, Macon County Library Board.
Good evening.
Hey, I want to thank you. I express my appreciation for your support for the library and your funding. I've been on the board about a little less than a year, and I made it my purpose when I went on there to try to understand what all goes on in our libraries. And so two things that really caught my attention that I didn't know much about. One was the summer food program that you heard about, I think, last month. And the other one, Derek, if you could just pass those down, is the thing called Maker Tools program. And it's brand new. The final grant stuff got approved the end of June, and it's in full swing now. And it's the feature article on the front of the Fontana Regional Library newsletter for this fall. And so I wanted to just get you up to date on what that really is. And I went in and met with two of the staff, one in the children's section and one in the adult section. And I was most impressed with what is being offered to the kids and to our citizens. And so you've got the details right there, but I wanted to give you my impression of meeting with them and what I experienced. And as the staff explained and demonstrated this program to me, I began to realize that the potential it has, and everything from the robotics to the construction, from preschoolers all the way up to middle schoolers, and then high schoolers on into the adult seniors in the adult section. They've got this thing set up in the children's part of the library for them, and then there's two areas in the adult section, and again, some of that's explained there. It's all hands-on activities, and there are things that involve robotics and construction that if some child is inspired to go into construction or machine operations or becoming an engineer or an architect, this is the most amazing thing I've seen, because it is just foundational to all of that stuff, and there's nothing else like it. They are planning to go into the school systems and introduce this in the elementary schools so these kids can come and take advantage of what's in the library. The adult section has got everything in there from learning how to, I gotta put my glasses on. Learning everything from sound and video conversions to sewing machine operation to constructions of electronic circuit boards to digital art design software and podcast equipment. It's the dangest thing I've seen in a long time. And it's for our citizens, and it all came through grant funding. So I just wanted to give you an update, and I'm going to keep my nose to the wheel and learn more about what's going on in the library, but I thought this was really something special, and I wanted to come and tell you about it, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dyer. All right, Bill Kirkman, broadband, little T broadband.
All right, thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you all today. We do. My name's Bill Kirkman. I'm a full-time resident in Scaly Mountain and have been for the last year. 14 years before that, we bought a house here and we were part-time. My career has been in technology. Most recently, I was an executive with ADP. And having been involved in Scaly Mountain, we found that there's a lot of interest in bringing broadband into our community. And so recently we created a Scaly Mountain Broadband community organization. I'm a member of that along with Robin Kennedy and Chuck Dunham. We have an advisory board, and they all represent different interests within the community, so business or residents or different parts of the residents. And, you know, together our focus is on bringing broadband into our community. So today we're here along with lots of members of the community. I think you'll see lots, maybe raise your hand if you're from the Scaly Mountain community. So lots of support and interest in this. And we're here to ask that you vote yes on the grant for Little T for the $178,000 that you all will cover later today. And enable them to be able to bring broadband internet service into our Macon County community. It is really critical to support and grow our local businesses. And when you think about that, it also includes those that work from home. So not just the things that you see when you drive by the stores. There's a lot of people who try to work from home. And as we've talked to the community, the local businesses, and the residents, we keep getting a lot of feedback about the negative impact that they're having by not having this kind of level of service. There's two things that really we focus on that I'd like to emphasize. One is that Frontier Telecommunications has run out of ports. And so what that means is that prevents anybody from getting new internet service. Anybody that doesn't currently have internet service cannot obtain it. So that means if you're a homeowner, a new homeowner, you can't get internet service. If you're a new business, you can't get internet service. We have a Scaly Mountain Community Center that we all wanted to get community access for and turned it into a hotspot. We're unable to do that. We're unable to get access. So the lack of service is really substantial and impacts our ability for the people in our community to work and live there. It also will dramatically affect the resale value of our homes and our businesses. Secondly, the internet service that we do have, for those that do currently have it, is often slow and unreliable. And we've just been unable to get Frontier to commit to increasing that speed. We've had a lot of businesses share with us the fact that they're having outages or instability, or the speed's not quick enough for their use, and it's really impacting the growth and our ability to attract businesses to our community. In addition to all the economic impacts described, broadband internet, we know, is going to have a great impact on education, on health and emergency services in our community. And for these and many other reasons, we're applying to you all, to the Commission, to support the grant for Little T Broadband. Thank you for allowing us to address this appeal directly, and to you, and for taking the time to consider this important matter.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Attorney, are we allowed to still take any testimony on the cell phone tower application?
The hearing's been closed.
Okay. We have someone signed up on public comment to discuss it.
I think they can discuss public
hearing.
comment, but it is not evidence.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you're going to have a presentation from Little T, I take it, later on in the agenda?
Okay. I'm up for,
Yeah.
9B.
okay. We're going to move it out of public comment then? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm just saying that we'll have more comment when Tony and everybody speaks. When Tony and Jeff speaks, I think we'll hear more about Little T.
All right, Jim. Gaffin. Welcome, Jim. I was trying to read your doctor's handwriting there. Welcome.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just get some glasses on here. First, Chairman Tate and Commissioners, and as well the City Manager and staff, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you during this public session. My name is Jim Gaffey. I'm a member and a resident of King Mountain community that is in the Scaly Mountain area. I serve on the King Mountain Broadband Committee set up by our Board of Directors, and we are exploring every option. I spent 30 years, a part of a very long career in telecommunication, retiring as an executive with Bell South Corporation. King Mountain community is here today to address you and to ask you to vote yes on the Little T application for the Commission's grant of $178,000 to help Little T bring reliable, high-speed broadband internet to our Macon County community. King Mountain has a sense of urgency in this regard because we have residents who are actually losing their internet access. Several of our new owners are being informed that the current local provider, Frontier Telecommunications, has run out of ports and cannot provide new internet services, and they do not have any future plans to do so. By the way, I've been in touch with the president of Frontier Telecommunications about these matters, and they have assigned a technical staff who are looking into these deficiencies. His name is Daniel McCarthy. This is having a negative impact, not only on the quality of life for our neighbors, but will also dramatically affect the resale value of our homes. This would be true for any Macon County homeowners in the entire county. Additionally, the current level of service provided to current Frontier customers has begun to deteriorate to extremely low levels of access and internet speed. We are even having problems with our Frontier landline phone services. For example, recently our manager, who services our very large community and brings updates on all kinds of matters, including emergencies, their phone service is out, and they were told that they'll be having phone service up again in 2 weeks. This is just totally unacceptable. Additionally, we are further concerned how this will affect connectivity in health services, including emergency response times. For these and many other reasons, we are applying to the Commission to support the grant for Little T. Thank you for allowing us to address this appeal directly to you in this open forum, and for taking the time to consider these pressing matters affecting Macon County. I'm submitting this on behalf and for the benefit of King Mountain Board of Directors and the residents of King Mountain, Scaly Mountain, and the entirety of Macon County. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Since you did serve as executive in there, you can't help but notice that Frontier stock went down to 42 cents a share. They're back up now to like 60 cents a share.
That's correct.
And that's a real concern for this board on behalf of all the citizens of this community.
Yes, sir.
I'm not asking you to look in no crystal ball, but that can't be a good thing.
No, it can't. I'll take that apart and parse it a little bit. First of all, you can be delisted if you go below $1. So presently, they're on the clock as a company to be delisted. That's if you have stock in Frontier, if anybody wants to do that. As well, they are dealing with a serious amount of debt. They recently sold off their Northwest holdings, a very large segment of their new business, in order to help pay down that debt. Currently, if you call a Frontier service attendant, you're more likely to get a subcontractor. Recently, we found a large twisted pair. It's a telecommunication term, very important in how it brings telecommunication into our homes. About 40-foot length, had separated from the supporting strand, which holds it in place. This was down in shrubs in a home that isn't used very often. It took us 2 weeks to get that corrected. Any kind of storm and/or weather-related situation would have snapped that cable easily. I looked at it myself, took pictures, and provided it to Frontier, and that would have cut out service for the whole King Mountain community. As far as their ability to meet their present requirements, I would say that it's borderline at best, Mr. Commissioner. If you want to take me into any other areas, that's a general outline of their present situation, but I can go into any level of details that you'd like to ask me.
I appreciate your insight because it is a concern for all Maconians.
Yes, sir.
Not only on the broadband side, but just on general phone service. So it's a real concern.
So that's why I mention a word which is not often used, or maybe it's overused, that we in our community have a sense of urgency. To a degree, ours is a retirement community. In fact, the Scaly area offers many things for retired people. You get into a health situation. How can we get services if we can't communicate with those emergency services? We don't dismiss the fact either, although I didn't mention it in this particular statement because we wanted it focused on our matters, is the educational values of the internet has been well proven in many areas. I could go into that in detail. I was the second person assigned to the creation of bellsouth.net, so I know what it is. I've been in communications since 1962 when I was a cable puller and a pole installer. So I understand this technology, and I understand how desperate this community should view this application. And I recognize that the community, especially the board here, are addressing this. But I can seriously tell you, in the diminished capability of Frontier Telecommunications, and I can say that publicly, you must act on these matters. So thank you very much. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Commissioner?
Thank you.
Chairman Tate, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Bonnie?
May I speak on here?
Absolutely. Well, we prefer for you to come up. That's okay. It goes through our recording system, through the microphone. You're live on the air right now, so.
On the internet, YouTube.
She can handle the pressure.
So I have to rotate so my back's not to everybody.
Very good. We got you right here.
Hi. Well, thank you.
Sure, thank you for coming.
Commissioners and staff, thank you so much. First of all, I really do want, I won't take much time, but I do want to say how much our little Scaly Mountain community appreciates the support of this board before in maintaining our kind of play space, only park kind of sort of space in the old schoolhouse. It really does mean a lot, that little contribution every year, so thank you for that. I'm here because I really do care about our community. And I volunteer, I have been for about 5 years now, to help our community association with getting out electronically a newsletter for our community and do surveying and things. And I did want you to know that even 5 years ago when we started that, I counted over 80 businesses in Scaly, and I had no idea, because you don't. I used to say, welcome to Scaly community is the sign, but where is it, you know? And it's just all tucked away in there. And I'm sure the numbers are bigger, especially with our younger families moving in. And if they have any kind of service like we do with Frontier, as far as internet. I mean, phone is one thing, it can go out. We've already heard all this. But we have a chance, I guess, I don't know all the details, but my husband, Mark Gramlett, who's been with the fire department for almost 20 years now, he knows a lot about the communication stuff. And we have a real possibility of lives being endangered. And if we had reliable internet, faster is one thing, that'd be great, but reliable would be just a really huge help to us. And I have heard, without even soliciting information from many of our residents, that if they are fortunate enough to own 2 homes, they're tending not to come to the one in Scaly because they need internet access, whether it's for health or for their livelihood. So it's just a really big deal for us there. And we're so isolated, and the topography is so weird. I feel like it's a real hardship to have the level of service we do. So I hope that you'll give this real serious consideration and learn all that you need to learn about it. So thank you very much. And I used to work in Franklin, and I miss going into schools and being part of the community here. Thank you.
Mr. Zads, I'll give you an opportunity. I'll give you an opportunity. Is there anyone else? I'm gonna handle this issue first since we have several people here for it, and then we'll move on to yours. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board under public comment period? No one else? Okay, let's move on to, I'll come back to you, I promise.
That's fine, sir.
Reports and presentations. Item 9A, Town of Highlands Fiber Project Update. Mayor Pat Taylor, welcome. Mr. Mayor.
I have a brief presentation. Let me see if I can pull this up. I think I can here just a second. All right. Thank you for having me, and appreciate this opportunity to give you an update on where we are on our fiber optic network and construction. And before you hear, we are in the construction zone right now on this $4.6 million project that the town is underwriting and borrowing the money. And then our private partner, Wide Open, will also be investing in the project also. So the message tonight is that we're at work. We've spent several months in what we call make-ready processes. We have our own utility company. We, of course, have things like the cable companies, telephone companies that use our utility poles, and we've had to do a lot of make-ready. In other words, move some wiring around so we can bring in the fiber optic network and install that. So we've been doing that, and to be quite frank, one of the issues that has delayed us has been getting the materials. The fiber optic cabling is in such demand, it has been back ordered. And our contractor, who is JBL Construction, has been waiting for the fiber and the equipment. And it is going to arrive here at the end of the month. And they will start day after tomorrow putting in what we call the MST units. Those are the multi-service terminals on our utility poles. There will be about 600 of these, and they will start this week installing those. And by the end of this month, the fiber optic cable will be there, and we will be able to start moving ahead. Here we go. You've got a photograph right there. That is some of the make-ready that we've been doing over the last several weeks, and we're bringing that to a conclusion, and we will start the next phase of actually installing the fiber optic cable next. And if I can just get this cursor to move forward. Let me see. Here we go. Here's the material that we're dealing with. And it's been ordered. And just to give you an idea of the enormity of this project, we're ordering 67,657 feet of what we'll call 864 count ADS all dielectric self-supporting fiber. That translates into 12 miles just of that fiber. Then we're bringing in another 71,040 feet, and that count of fiber will be 432. And then it keeps going on, another 53,970, 288 count. And then we have the smaller fibers, 71,486 feet of smaller count fiber and hardware. And then the MST units, those are those service terminals that distribute the fiber. That's 698 of those that will be installed. So this is a network, and we will be having Wide Open construct a hub at our old restrooms that we abandoned several years ago, right next to Town Hall. And that will be the heart of the network. And I like to describe the network very much like the human body. You have the heart, the hub, and then all of what I've just read off and shown you is really the kind of, you might say, the arteries and the veins and the vessels that will transmit this whole fiber network to every piece of property and every business in Highlands. We've been delayed slightly because of the back order, but we plan on having this network lit up around April of next year. Now, my point is this. We'll be lighting it up, and we'll be serving the people of Highlands who are Macon Countyans. But that's not where Wide Open wants to stop. In their business model, the whole idea has been to move out beyond the city limits of Highlands. And in fact, any of our 3,300 utility customers, some of which, about 150, I believe, live outside of Highlands, they'll be hooked up as a part of this initial effort. But I understand what Little T and the folks at Staley are talking about. This is a critical technology that needs to be throughout all of our communities. It's so valuable. We're really excited about what we're doing, but we're open, especially through Wide Open, to partner with other communities in making sure that this service goes forward. So, let me see if I can get this last slide up. I didn't know. Here we go. The way this is going to work, we will start working from the outside of the town, inside to the hub. So the smaller fiber will be the first thing that we'll start installing, and then we will come in and connect that all to the hub. So that's basically where we are with our initiative. We've been working on it now for 5 years. I wanted to just make a few other comments. One is that we believe that this, as the folks who have spoke earlier tonight, this is a critical technology that will continue to add value to the community and individual properties. For example, I'm a potter. I had a client from Savannah at my studio just recently. He was very generous, and I was feeling very good because he was buying a lot of my work. And I asked the person, I said, well, have you ever thought about buying a house in Highlands, North Carolina? And he said, yes. I had a contract on a house 2 years ago. And in the due diligence period, I started looking at your internet services. And where I live in Savannah, I'm an attorney and a businessman. I must have absolute connectivity to the internet with strong broadband. And when I looked at what was available, I did not purchase the house. So I echo what the folks at Scaly Mountain is saying. This will protect us in the future by having this technology for economic development, for education, and for our critical medical needs that we have. So that's been the motivation for the town board moving forward with this this whole project of creating a fiber optic network. And we've borrowed the money, and we've asked, of course, that the county partner. I know that the county is not in the utility business. You do not run water or electricity, and I understand that. But to me, you can help facilitate and partner with other groups that feel that they need to address this in their more local communities in the county. So with that, if anybody would like to ask me any questions, I'm ready to respond.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned how many utility customers you have?
We have 3,300. That's both residential and business.
You haven't provided yet, Mr. Mayor?
We have wide open networks, and wide open networks will bring in the providers. We know, and I don't want to announce it tonight, but we know that some of the local people will go on the network rather than trying to, run lines themselves, because it will be available. They'll be able to lease the dark fiber and work through wide open. We're not going to really be in the providing business or the content business. One of our long-term goals is, because we do have a water and electrical system, we want to become a smart grid and be able to better manage some of those utilities by having a fiber optic network. For example, we will have a situation where people can be hooked up and can continually monitor their water bills, their water uses, their electrical uses. We'll be able to do things like at night, dim the lights, the street lights down when they're not in high demand, and then bring them back up at other times. So those are the kind of things that we think as a municipality will be a great long-term payoff for us. So we see it as an investment. Now, I'm sure you share that same concern. This is a real opportunity to me for Macon County to step forward in Western Carolina and say, we will address this technology which will pay dividends in the near future, not the long future. I mean the real immediate future, within the next 5 or 10 years. So that's where we are on that.
That's I've thought about this a lot, Mr. Mayor, and I haven't thought about, I keep thinking about an outside provider coming in from Atlanta or Charlotte or whatever to provide the service, but I haven't considered our local operators are based in Highlands.
Right.
Providing that across your, that are already doing it. So.
And for example, if you have a fiber network, I know people worry about landlines. You can run a landline on fiber, and it's, just as reliable and probably is just as clear as if you're depending on a outdated copper system. Wanted to address one thing. Some people are asking, well, what will be the demand on this? And we've done kind of a market analysis, and we kind of estimate that you have what they call the pass and take rate. And initially, we think that there'll be about a 30% to maybe a 40% take rate of customers who will want to sign up on this network. One of the things that it really does for the customer is there's none of this throttling down or up and down. If you want 50 megabytes, it's up or down, and that's really critical to business, telecommunications, and those kind of initiatives. So, and like I say, I know wide open in the town. We want to partner. We're wanting to partner, and we expect, and the business model is that wide open wants to move this out beyond our local town limits, and that's why I was showing you tonight all the slides of the fiber and everything. I was talking to Matt Schuler, our technical person today, and he was saying we've got well beyond what we need for serving Highlands. We've got the capacity, working with wide open, to extend this fiber network out beyond the town limits.
So you're saying there's a possibility you might be able to work with Scaly and those folks? And
I would say this. Wide open, I'm sure, would be interested in doing that. We're a municipality, and we're kind of limited with this. And I want to put in a plug for Representative Corbin, who has been pushing the NC Fiber Bill 431, trying to promote broadband through these 70 underserved counties. And, I've been keeping track of
You think
that.
it's coincidentally can't get out of a committee?
No, because there is resistance from large
Oh, there's lobbyists that have to pin
telecommunications.
each other.
That's right. And to keep Representative Corbin credit, he turns around and he says, well, fine, come out here and build this for us. We're open for it, and they go silent. So I think it's going to take community initiatives to make this a reality, and we want to be a part of that, not just in Highlands, but wherever we can help, and we want to encourage our private providers to do that. So,
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Any further
Okay.
questions?
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
you've got 3,300 power customers.
Right.
How many current customers do you have on fiber?
We don't have fiber. Our little broadband altitude is some fiber, but most of it's wireless. And we have right now, I checked it today, 300 customers. And once we light this up, that whole altitude becomes a part of wide open, and that's the initial base for.
How long have y'all been in the broadband business? When did you start?
We have been in about 2 years. And to be quite frank, we have been working with House Bill 129, which puts a lot of restrictions on communities and municipalities being involved in this type of initiative. And we have been working with our attorneys and consultants now. We went to the FCC when it was challenged, that House Bill 129 was challenged, and they ruled in favor of saying we control the internet, and we saw that as an opportunity to start trying to meet that need. And now that we've been able to create this partnership with Wide Open, they will basically absorb this small department we have in the
So those
in the
300
county.
customers, how many are on fiber?
On fiber, I could not really tell you. We have some fiber close to the downtown area, but really, most of the people are on the Wi-Fi or the wireless. And we also have customers that are outside the town limits. If we can get the signal to them, we've let them hook up to
Sure wish I
the
could
network.
get
Yes, and in my neighborhood, I had everybody in my neighborhood on it except me because I'm real low. And on the altitude, I couldn't get it, and eventually fiber was actually brought to the neighborhood. But right now, our fiber is just primarily in the business area and the neighborhoods that are close to the town.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned money.
Yes, sir.
Was you making a specific request to this board, or just with your hand out, or where are we at?
I had made a bold request of maybe $1 million over a number of years, if you remember at my last presentation. But, any support that you can provide will be greatly appreciated. To be quite frank, with the loan that we've taken out, and the construction and the startup of this whole system, our biggest challenge in the coming 2 years will be servicing that loan while we get the customer base and the revenue from Wide Open coming in to offset that. With the long-term goal in 15 years, and that's the length of the loan, that we will have been able to pay back the loan from the revenues from the operation of the network. But we realize, like any business, you have to kind of load up at the front end to realize the money coming in.
But you do think your base budget of 4.6 is going to hold? That's a...
Yes, Mr. Higdon of JB&L, we have a contract, and that is the cost of the construction, so that hasn't changed. So the unknown factor is how much it'll cost Wide Open to put in about 18% of the network, which is underground because we have underground utilities. when we first started the process, we thought it was going to cost several $1 million, but the technology, especially the shallow trenching on roadways, has come in to where we don't think it will be, as costly to do that portion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Any further?
I'm going to try to hit escape. That's taken care of.
Thank you.
Okay,
Safe
thank y'all so
travels
much. And I appreciate your willingness to address this critical, issue, not just for, the municipality of Highlands, but this whole, county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 9B, broadband for Scaly Mountain area and Otto area. Presentation, Little T Broadband Services. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. I have 6 copies of a handout here. Roy, Chairman Tate, Commissioners, County Manager. Hard act to follow, But my name's Anthony Deakins, and good evening. I am the Chief Executive Officer, Little T Broadband Services, which is a 501c3 formed to bring broadband access to Macon County, South Macon County, which includes the Otto and Scaly mountain communities. Just for clarity's purpose, broadband internet is defined by the FCC as a minimum of 25 megabits per second download and 3 megabits per second of upload. My purpose here tonight is to share with you the progress that we have made to date in achieving our goal to seek the county's assistance in continuing that progress. I've provided you with a brief package of documents, including the key points of this discussion, as well as some GIS-based maps, which shows you all those little dots are actually connectable broadband customers. And we can dig into that a little bit later. But I've also provided you with a projected timeline and when we expect to light up the pilot, and a breakdown of our proposed use of the $178,000 that we're requesting from the county to support our continuing. 2019 actually marks the 4th year that we've been in pursuit of this. We formed the corporation, the 501, last year. We were recently joined by the Scaly community in working toward the objective of bringing broadband on a large scale. We're, as you've heard already, broadband access is no longer a discretionary service for those looking to enhance their entertainment venue. It is very critical to the economic and social vitality of rural counties or communities such as ours, and just as it has enhanced the economic and social vitality of larger urban areas. It's essential to our ability to attract new businesses, as you've heard earlier, and to allow existing businesses to compete and thrive. In the Otto area, you heard some about the Scaly businesses. In the Otto area, I have had conversations with most of the 31 businesses that are obvious and visible, not counting all the businesses that may be tucked away in back roads of Otto. But we have a large automotive repair shop there that came up from Florida, assuming that they would have basically the same environment that they had in Jacksonville, to find out that they didn't, and they gave up about 1/3 of their business because they can no longer download software to automobile computers. If there's any interruption in that download, it can damage the computer. He's bought a few for customers, and he has since sold his equipment for doing that, and just sent that business down to Clayton for the most part. Additional to bringing in new businesses and supporting our existing business, we know that real estate values are affected by having or not having access to the internet, and as importantly, how much bandwidth or broadband you have access to. Broadband is essential to help modernize public education. It's also essential in the support of public health and to provide for the safety and welfare of those of us who live in the rural communities. There's literally thousands of expert case studies that have waxed on about the impact on communities with high levels of broadband access versus communities without this access. And it shows a harsh differentiation about vitality of rural communities versus those in the larger urban areas in terms of jobs, health, education, opportunities, and more. We've completed a significant amount of research and GIS-supported demographic, topographic research, and we've had the support of our local EMC, which is Haywood EMC, which has a small pocket of footprint inside of South Macon County that runs Otto up through into Scaly. And that'll become more relevant as I go on here. We've settled on a high-level architecture that's going to be implemented, and this is a bit of an announcement, by a coalition of Haywood EMC, Balsam West, and Little T broadband service. It's largely a fiber to home with some expected application of fixed wireless in locations where fiber is not economically or otherwise practical. Network is going to provide a minimum bandwidth to meet the FCC requirements of 25 and 3 up, but we have the capacity, or will have the capacity, to provide quite a bit more. In fact, one of the things that we are looking to do is the very first places we're going to light up are the 2 community centers, the Scaly Community Center and the Otto Community Center, and we're doing that. We hope to be able to do that with a minimum of 50 megabits of download service, but to provide a platform for those communities to pursue grants and programs for after school, for telemedic supported health programs, and things like we've had suggestions of a new business incubator as well for local startups. The network's going to run through initially the Tessantee and Middle Creek valleys of the Otto community down through I guess it's the east side of 441 down to the state line. It will also run back up through the Haywood lines over into Scaly Mountain, and that will form essentially the backbone for our network. We have phases 2 through 4, which will be the other components of Otto community north and to the west of the highway. That will cause us to engage more with Duke Power, and the architecture will probably be somewhat different than what we have with Haywood. Yeah, I provided you with a map, and you can see all the little dots there. You know, this is the location of all the meters of that we feel like are primary meters that Haywood has provided us with. And in addition, you can see some little red lines. That's the path of the main, the main power, the main trunk for the fiber. And you can see the location of the 2 community centers. We will provide access, or we will gain access to the wide world of the internet. They call it points of presence, or POPs, both to the north, to the south, and to the east of us. And so we will have multiple gateways out into the world. Like I said, the dots you see on these maps display in what we hope will in fact become 1,000 points of light. Actually, there's 1,750 of them that we are targeting to complete in this initial phase. Strategy, like I said, is to deploy largely aerial to fiber, so we'll be hanging all of our fiber, primary fiber, on the power lines that both the transmission and the distribution lines that Haywood provides. The utilizing fiber the cost has come down. Understand there's a high demand rate for it, but when we started this conversation 4 years ago, it was a lot higher than what it is today, and so it makes fiber very very practical for this purpose. The hybrid architecture involving the wireless, we believe, is the most cost-efficient and sustainable model for rural areas that are mountainous and endowed with our lovely heavy foliage, which can be sometimes a problem. As importantly, we believe that we have a repeatable model, and that this model can be used in many other communities and even other counties throughout western North Carolina. It's Little T Broadband Services has been and continues to be happy to share whatever information, experience, knowledge that we have acquired and will acquire in our planning, design, and deployments. Following like I said, the Otto and Scaly pilots, we will continue on through the rest of Otto. We talked about the hot spots in the community centers. This has become, particularly in Otto, very popular notion because they have been trying to come up with programs to better utilize our community center space. We have a very large facility, and frankly, we feel like it's underutilized. And so in trying to come up with programs to better utilize that facility, broadband keeps coming into the conversation. It has, for some time. And so that platform would allow early start for these communities to leverage the programs that I was talking about. And the other aspect is in healthcare is, and I have a personal encounter with this, not myself, but a neighbor of mine. A lot of the medical devices that are coming out these days require a connection to some facility somewhere else, vis-a-vis the internet. A pacemaker with a defibrillator component on it, for example, and that thing fires off, it wants to send a message and send data to a physician somewhere to monitor what's going on. This is current state-of-the-art technology for healthcare, and the people that live in these areas simply can't use it because they don't have that reliable access or access at all. We've received substantial support from both of our communities. We've completed a considerable amount of high-level design and planning work made possible through volunteers, a number of them, and some of them you've heard from tonight. Many with subject matter expertise and skills in broadband technologies, as well as in business formation and management. This effort to date has been funded through individual donations and an immense amount of personal pro bono time and personal expenses. We're at the point now where we're ready to begin the hard and expensive work of connecting home and businesses to the internet. At this time, we have sufficient data and cost information to begin our pursuit of grants long targeted for this purpose. And to that end, we intend to contract with professional grant writers with specific experience in this area. And further, we need to contract and complete low-level engineering designs for both the autopilot and the Scaly community deployment, along with the formal legal agreements that must accompany all of this, as well as binding more closely the coalition members that we have established here. Little T Broadband Service needs funding support to accomplish these initial tasks, and we estimate this funding support requirement to be right at $178,000, which we are tonight formally requesting the county to provide. This money will place us in a position where we can acquire additional funding, i.e. grants. We're also looking at a couple of capital loans from the USDA, one in payable when the work, so that we have money that is available when the work is ready to do, and to the little extent as possible, having work waiting for money to show up. The timeline that I provided you assumes no interruptions, and as you can see, it fills out the better part of 2 years. We expect that we can probably improve on that timeline by virtue of there's a lot of things we can be doing in parallel that aren't indicated there yet. But we also anticipate that there are things we know, things we know we don't know, and we're going to encounter some things we didn't know yet. And so we've cut out some space and resource for dealing with that. In closing, just if you would, please keep in mind that the grant being requested tonight is not to supplement a for-profit business venture. It is Little T Broadband Service is a nonprofit organization, and we intend to be around for quite some time. And it is run currently by volunteer local citizens. It will always have a board of directors consisting of representatives from the communities that we serve, whether that's 2 or more. It is a member-owned organization as well. So the aim of the service is to help promote economic development, improve health and education services, and to augment and improve public safety through the development of this network. Your financial support obviously would be appreciated, but it is also sorely needed as well for us to expeditiously move down that timeline that I have provided with you. So again, our request is for that initial grant of $178,000 to kick us off and to help light up these 2 communities. And I think this is where I get to stop and answer your questions.
Mr. Chairman, just let me say we had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Deakins and Mr. Lee, the chairman, and myself, and a lot of this is over my pay grade. But I think that the only way we're ever going to have broadband in our area, we get penalized so much because of our topography, of where we live. Just a fact. I think the only way that we're really going to have it is folks like you and this community and Scaly community is going to step up and do it. I really think that that's the only case. We've kicked this around now for 5 or 6 years, and we've had committees, we've had this, but when you see the town of Highlands and the Octo community and Scaly community really making an effort to do something, we've not done squat, zilch. So I admire it very much, and I'm supportive of a system to help fund both entities, which we'll get into when other people have a chance. But I just wanted to thank you and for all the work that y'all put in. I know it don't pay too well either. So,
I've been better.
Yeah. But I think going forward, and I think this can be a template for other communities.
I believe it to be, and that was one of the considerations when we first started this thing out is not to create a one-off situation. And we followed the progress of Highlands for a long time. We have had many conversations with Wide Open Networks. They were actually one of the bidders on our RFP. Balsam won the RFP, however. And you know, one of the things that we've looked at is the economic impact and models that in Chattanooga and Wilson, North Carolina, and other places that have been able to bring this in there. And you know, I've seen a lot in my career, but the differences really are mind-boggling in terms of what can happen. It's kind of strange to look at a technology and sit there and say that it can make these kinds of impacts on the lives of communities, but it's true, it can. And if you don't have it, then you're sort of stuck in time because you can't move forward, while the rest of the world is in fact moving forward, and it's punishing the consequences.
What is the status of the broadband committee?
I think essentially, you know, the Southwestern Commission, like us, picked up on this broadband need and have been searching for ways to address it. Like Ronnie said, we've been working on this for 5 years now, but I think a lot of where the confusion is coming in is what can and cannot counties do with money. How can counties support the broadband effort? That's something that, funding-wise, Chester, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the state legislature is just simply not made clear at this point.
Well, we did some research on this when we were discussing this pretty regularly. It's probably been a year, I'm guessing. And at that point in time, there was not a lot of guidance from counties about what they could or couldn't do. Legislation that specifically authorized municipalities to get involved, but that legislation was not extended to counties. And so, you know, we may be at a place where we've got to go back and do some additional research and see what further opportunities, if any, are available to counties today. And I think that's what's so frustrating.
Well, there are 3 or 4 counties in North Carolina.
There's more than that.
That have cracked the nut on this thing and have funded broadband, community-based broadband, typically through a 501 kind of structure. I don't have all the details at present, but we're still looking at how some of that may be applicable here.
I actually heard a presentation by one county down east. I don't know exactly how they went about it, but the presenter allowed that they were pushing the envelope, if you will, and it was not completely clear how it was going to come out. So.
Let me say something into Paul's question there. We started, when you was with us, we started out as looking at this in a local concept.
Mm-hmm.
And people like yourself provided a lot of information. But then we saw right quick, there's a regional concept out
Right.
there that you're encouraged to go in because the regional concept picks up more money. And so trying to do it individually by county, I didn't think was productive. It was, we ran into a lot of walls, and so we kind of had to move it into the regional part. And when you do that, you get into big, then a lot of times things don't even flow anymore. You're not communicating with each other. And so we've had this conversation a few years ago. The lady that came in here, you had 50 people in the Cartuga J community.
Yes, I remember them.
That wanted to do the concept of a small. We've been through the wireless things and looking at small areas, stuff like that. But you can't make it fly or something. Then when you bring in the providers, we brought it right in this room here. If there's not a buck in it, you can forget it. Last mile, mid-mile, they don't talk to you.
No.
And you've been a big help to a lot of people out here. And with your expertise and knowledge, when we first started, we were just on the ground trying to figure out what to do.
I think the sentiment that came out of the commission that you were talking about was, I remember reading it and it's stock, but I don't have the exact quote, but it was something to the effect that we've done all we can do and it's going to be a community-driven solution.
Right.
And I picked that up real fast as saying, okay, well, that's the tune we're going to march to.
And that goes, you know, as Commissioner Shields was saying, before, and Paul, to get back to your question, but before the broadband committee, I mean, we incorporated our GIS folks, our mapping folks.
Right.
We sent surveys out in the school system, out to
Right.
county residents on emails to collect this information to report that there is a problem, and we do have a problem. And I read somewhere recently, you know, where I think with respect to report it, with the companies being able to report a census block, if one person in a census block is covered
Right.
in an entire census
great
block,
fake.
if one person has 25 megabytes down, then that whole block is counted as 25 down being
Right.
available. But
For
things
everybody.
like that, you know, I read recently where things like that are now changing it. But like Ronnie said, you know, the efforts of Representative Corbin are, you know, are second to none, and he's down there trying to push something through to open up ways for us to do things like this. But as Ronnie said, that lobby, you know, is very strong, and so a lot of it just comes down to, we got the information gathered with the broadband committee. It led to an appropriation in the budget of $400,000 that is sitting there from our Economic Development Reserve Fund, so that indeed when we do get any kind of guidance or establish a clear path of something that we can do within the limits of the law, that we're sitting there ready to go in the budget with funds to go towards something like that. But navigating through that is something, as Chester was saying, that not many people are clear on.
And I sit as vice president of the Southwest Commission. So we've had this discussion.
Right.
For 5 years. And he keeps circling back around, and but this is something that, and what Commissioner Shields says is correct. It is local, but with what's going on, I think that the only way we're ever going to achieve anything is to buy local.
Seems to be.
It don't seem to be, it is.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what's legal or what's not, but we got $400,000 sitting into the camp. And I would certainly support, over a 2-year period, giving the town of Highlands $250,000 a year for 2 years, doing 50% of your request over 2 years, and every 6 months or every year we can see how we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't see how you're doing if you're broke. Highlands can't see. It would help Highlands more too if they had money. If you had this commission board on behalf of the Macon County citizens say, well, we support you. That gives you something to hang your hat on when you go ask for more money.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm for one legal. If we wait on the legislature to help us with this, we'll be back with a ring telephone with the.
Well, you know, the adage, I'm an old guy, so the adage is, if you want something done fairly quickly, give it to the old guy. You got a lot of time to screw around with it, and so, you know, I'm in that boat. So yes, if I have to wait on the state, yeah, it's.
Carl works with it every day. He's the most knowledgeable one on this board about this.
Yeah.
And me and Carl's had the conversation. He can relate that to you. I really think that people with the initiative, like y'all have took, like the town of Highlands has took, is the only way that people, that Maconians, and some of them will never get it. There's areas that we know that.
There's always, yeah, and there's people who really aren't, you know, interested in getting it.
But that don't mean you penalize everybody else.
Yeah, and you can't penalize the growth that you're not going to get if you can't provide this kind of environment, because I went to a meeting that Tommy Jenkins had up in Highlands, and it was to why tourism was such a benefit to Macon County, because all these young people come in here and they see this lovely place and they want to live here, and this is the age of work where you live, and so they can just come up here and move and they can start working from their homes. And I'm standing in the back of the audience going, no, they can't, because they can't get a connection to the outside world.
I started to work for a gentleman today, Dan Paul's neck of the wood. He has spent $100,000 out of his own pocket to get internet service to his house. $100,000, and it still is not the best in the world. So
It's amazing.
How many people? I mean, you'd have to be in the landscape business to afford that.
He's got the micro trenching tools and the rock cutters, right?
Really, I mean, who can afford to do that? How many people can afford to do that?
And frankly, if you look at Otto particularly as a tier 1 community, all right? And, you know, they have to have a Kickstarter, some help in getting, you know, this going so that they can rise above that. And when the businesses can't survive, I mean, we have, here you go. We sit at the gateway to Western North Carolina. 441 comes through Otto. Otto is the first place you see when you come up the highway. And what do you see? You see a business dead zone. We've got buildings that have fallen down. We've got shops that have boarded up. Got plenty of junkyards. But, you know, not to cast aspersions on my community, I love the place, but 441 is when you come into North Carolina, you know, you kind of move quickly up that piece of the road for a couple of reasons. Not the least of which, you've got big holes in cellular service, so you can't make a phone call. The EMS has holes in their communication service up and down 441. I know one of my neighbors was in a car accident on 441 just inside the auto limits, and they couldn't communicate with dispatch and couldn't get the helicopter. They put her in an ambulance, sent her to Gainesville because there's no trauma care here, and she got down to Gainesville, and 45 minutes later she was dead. So, I mean, these are real stories, and they happen more than once. And when you, again, when you have this gateway, I mean, Franklin, Macon County is the gateway to Western Carolina. And what have you got there? I thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Just to reiterate, you mentioned it, how many subscribers are you eventually hoping to touch?
1,750. There's actually, well, in the entirety of Otto, it would probably be closer to 2,000.
Have you done any estimates yet on what you're figuring your total build-out cost will be? It keeps getting smaller. I mean, it's not so smaller. It keeps getting more refined. But yeah, we know that it's going to be roughly $5 million to do the Otto Middle Creek area, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to do the Scaly area and finish that out. Now that's, you know, soup to nuts. Okay, repeat that again. Sorry.
It's about $5 million to do the Otto and Middle Creek area, and then
So about 12
about
total.
7, yeah, about 12 total to get it all done.
Okay. And you're shooting again. I'm just re-emphasizing, just trying to clear things up. That
Right.
Ronnie said, not my pay grade. I'm a landscaper.
We all started somewhere.
So you're hoping, and the money that you're basically going to be taking from our taxpayers, from our county residents, is going to be going towards
bringing more money.
Process of trying to help clarify this, so hopefully
Yeah.
you can get more grant money to hopefully fund this build out.
True.
Okay. So
Yeah, no, we've got the low-level designs. Low-level design is basically somebody gets on the road and looks at each and every home site and business site and establishes what the strategy is going to be to connect them.
Right.
We have the high-level designs, and we can look at it from a digital basis. And we got a lot of help from the county in terms of data that we receive from them. We got a lot of help from Haywood. We've got a lot of help from the state. We're constantly engaged with NC IT on this subject. And so, you know, there's 3 of us that have formed the core group, but there's probably 25 that make up the full complement that push Little T forward.
So before, I'm sure there's going to be some more questions. I'm going to go ahead and Commissioner Bill kind of stated his position. I'll state mine as well. I don't have an issue at all with supporting this. I don't have an issue at all with supporting the town of Highlands with some of theirs. But what I think it would be important for this board to do is to set some type of a protocol on how we can potentially disperse public funds moving forward.
Yeah.
Do we do it on potential amount of subscribers? Do we do it on, I think the wind's blowing this way today, I think I'm gonna give them $1 million, I think I'm gonna give them 25,000.
Right.
How do we do that? Because I
I
got a
wouldn't-
feeling if you're successful, and gosh, I hope we are with this.
So do
I hope
we.
you are. If you're successful and you're able to clone this to where we can take it up in Nantahala, where we can take
Right.
it up in North Franklin, wherever we might take it to, how are we going to potentially disperse funds to them too? And I don't want to set up something that the county, that we can't sustain financially or emotionally, or 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road.
Right.
How are we going to keep up with this? Do we keep putting $400,000 a year as we did this year into a fund and keep doing it? I don't know what that answer is. I think it's something this board's going to have to discuss.
There are some
personally
thoughts
and
on
come
that
up with an
subject.
answer.
But, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if I understood you correctly, you identified maybe 4 counties that were working on
3 or
similar
4,
initiatives.
yeah.
Do you by chance know those names of those
Andrews County comes to mind. I don't have the other names with me, but I will get them for you.
counties? That would be real helpful, because oftentimes county attorneys can talk to county attorneys
Mhm.
and kind of see how they're approaching.
Yeah, figure out what the magic is.
Yeah.
Pearson County, I can tell you most of them.
Ah, here we go.
Pearson,
Person,
Hyde.
I know the attorney in Person County, he's the one that gave
They've done
he's-
got it implemented.
He's the one that, well, what they did is they built their own
That's right.
fiber optic for their county, and then they overbuilt it
And
to
they're
where
selling
they
it.
had surplus, is what they did.
So that's Hyde County is another.
But
Sampson County is another.
Their county attorney will also say, or did at the time, say that they were pushing the envelope.
But nobody pushed back.
Not yet.
It's kind of hard to take it back once you got it built.
Yeah.
It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
All right,
Hey,
questions?
So at some
Commissioner
point,
Higgins?
this thing's going to sustain itself off of user fees.
Yes.
What were the other counties, Ronnie? Is there
Hyde and
Hyde,
Sampson is the ones I know of.
Hyde and Person?
Person and Sampson.
And without getting into your business model too much, what would a average cost of a household be to connect to this?
Okay, good question. Understand that our minimum is 25.3, all right? Minimum bandwidth is 25 megabits a second, download 3 up. So that you won't be able to buy less than that. That is higher than just about anything Frontier I'm aware of provides, anybody. That we hope to price commensurate to the standard rates that you find in Asheville and Atlanta. So that we're not punished for which means there's going to be some continuing subsidization at certain levels. So it's going to roughly be somewhere between $40, $45 a month, maybe $50 a month to have that. The good news is, at that bandwidth, not only do you have ample internet to do the kinds of things we've talked about, but you also have, as Pat said, you have ample internet to run phone service across. And there's several ways you can do that, both for a business and for a home. Above 25, it gets pricier. So, I mean, the next increment is probably 50 megabits, a second. And that would be, somewhere around $75 a month. And then you keep going up to there. And eventually, we're going to have businesses that are going to want gigabit service. Now, understand there's gigabit service in Dillard, Georgia. All right? It chafes me to say that, but there is gigabit service offered in Dillard, Georgia. And, I'm here talking about 25 and 50 and 100 megabit service. But there's no reason we cannot provide gigabit when that comes. And I have no idea what the price of that would be at this point in time. But we really want to keep the residential rates on a par with if you had lived in Asheville or if you lived in Atlanta. Those are the two benchmarks that will use.
Then naturally, commercial or...
And commercial will be higher because they want the higher rates of service, and so they can complete credit card transactions. Yeah, it's funny, guys. When I first came here, I couldn't understand why people didn't take credit cards. And then one day I was at Cafe Rel's and I was talking to Richard Long, and I said, why you take my check but you won't take the credit card? That's counterintuitive to me. And he says, you ever tried to process a credit card? And he had pretty good service. And, it's just, a delay, they can't process, got a mad customer, So he said, it's not worth the hassle, not worth the employee time, it's not worth the irritation of the customer. We don't do it. So, thanks a lot.
Any further questions, Carl?
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
All right, I'd also, I'm going to pass this on to be placed into the record. I have a letter from Lawrence Street, president of King Mountain Club, Inc., basically requesting that we support Little T Broadband. So I'll pass this along to the record.
So where are we going to leave it at, Mr. Chairman?
Any suggestions? I guess it's up for discussion.
Well, legally, that's another question, but we've got $400,000 in the account. We've got two entities that's trying to do the right thing. And I'd throw it out for discussion
if we authorize $250,000 to the town of Highland, over $250,000 for 2 years, making a total of $500,000. And to Little T for, they're asking for 178, is authorized 89,000 to them. And then we'll have a review 6 months from now, a year from now. Is that money gone to benefit? Would another $89,000 really help you at that time?
6 months would be fine.
Yeah, so, I'm just ready, I guess, I don't know, because maybe my patience is thin, but after 5 years and nothing happened, you've got two groups here ready to step out, and I think we should give them an opportunity to succeed. That's just my opinion.
It's an investment.
Conceptually, I think it's a good idea. What you may be doing, though, is possibly getting the cart in front of the horse. You're going to have to find legal authority to do what you're doing. If you don't have legal authority, then there are a number of problems that come to Macon County, and in particular, you five commissioners.
That's why we pay Chester the big bucks.
3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I announced I was going to run for county commissioner, I had just 2 or 3 things that I was going to work on. Broadband was one of them, because that's something I'm familiar with. And I don't know anything but that, unfortunately. And I felt like I could utilize some of those resources that I have at my disposal to help Macon County move forward with broadband. And during that time, there was a broadband committee formed that did a lot of legwork to try to determine where the broadband needs were in Macon County. As it turned out, it was from the northern part to the southern part, and then from the west to the east. But other than those areas, we got plenty of broadband. So then, I've followed this in other counties and other states. That process started trying to develop a business model and a deployment plan, and it comes down to dollars and cents. We really need federal money to do this, to get us down the road. It's going to take federal dollars and a lot of federal dollars to do it. I think the state has recognized that they're going to have to play some part in this. But if we wait for the federal government and the state to save us, then we're going to be sitting up here on dial-up, if we're lucky, if you can get dial time, waiting for that to happen. So I think what we've talked about tonight is a lot of good conversation, in that it's going to take some initiative locally for that to happen. The concern I have, a couple concerns I have with that, is there are far more of these initiatives that have failed than have succeeded. So from a county standpoint, I think we're going to have to be very careful in how we structure it, where we're protecting the citizens of Macon County, because we're spending their tax dollars. I'm going to pick on the town of Highlands a little bit. Town of Highlands is going to build that fiber network, with or without the money that we provide them. They're far enough down the road with it, in my opinion, that it's just about impossible for them to turn around the road now. They've got to see it through or go broke doing it, and I don't think they're going to go broke doing it. But so the town of Highlands is one situation that's unique in the way they're going about it. We have Little T, and we have other community models that are out there that they want to deploy broadband, that need to be supported. So how do we support those? I've had multiple conversations with everybody that I can talk to, trying to get one simple question answered. Can the county fund Little T? Just a yes or no. And I have yet to get a yes. And I've talked from attorneys to the folks that actually implement it. So I think we're gonna have to have some help legislatively to stay out of trouble, because the way that it's been explained to me is unless it is tagged as economic development, then it can't be funded through a grant or whatever through the county. So I think we're gonna have to have some help there to get us in the clear, so we can start funding these things. Then how are we gonna go about funding them? I think, you know, the second thing we need to have to be very careful about is that we do it fairly and uniformly across the entire county, because, you know, there's just very few communities in our county that you could go and ride up to a house and say, are you happy with your broadband? I mean, it just doesn't exist. So I think it's going to be imperative for the board through the county manager to establish how the county is going to deploy these dollars. What's going to be the criteria in which when we're going to start funding? What is these projects? What phase is these projects going to need to be in? And then whatever that, like the chairman referenced earlier, you know, is it by subscribers? Is it by household? Is it by fiber footage? You know, what's going to be the criteria, and apply a dollar value to that, so that when a Little T sits down and they start developing this, they know what the county funding model is going to be, and they can put that into their business model. So, and what that will do is it'll give those communities an idea of what's available at the county level. The state and the federal is easy right now; it's a zero. And then this board can be rest assured that they're being fair to all the citizens of Macon County without penalizing the Little T's. I hate to keep picking on y'all, I apologize for that. But
We're the only ones here.
But we're not penalizing those folks that's taking the initiative to get started with it. So, you know, I think I agree with Ronnie 100%. We've talked about it. And y'all have heard me say this many times before. You know, we hold Macon County near and dear to our heart for whatever reason we have. But for folks that's looking to move somewhere, they look at this whole Appalachian mountain range, and we're competing with those. And I think that having broadband is going to make a huge difference when it comes down to having a competitive edge, trying to lure those folks into our community. So I think we need to come up with a funding plan that's fair and equitable to everybody, and I don't think that should be a long process to do. And then we need to start funneling those dollars per that plan, and that way we know that we're doing it fairly and equitably to all the citizens of Macon County.
I'd like to disagree with my good friend Carl on that, because I think we have a partner. I think that it would be a template for the other communities. Yes, we could set some kind of formula if you've got 10,000 people that could get. There's no guarantee on this thing. We found that out of who's going to sign up, who's going to do what. But I think with Little T and the town of Highlands, if we do support them now, that will give, we have a partnership with them. And when the next community comes along, the misstep that you took, you'll share with those folks. What worked with you will work for the other folks. And so I would take exception to Carl's scenario that we'd have to have a template first. I think you would help create that template. I think Highlands is going to help create that template. And I think that's something we can share with the entire county. And so for a very small investment, overall, it's not a small investment, it is taxpayer dollars. But for what I suggested over a 2-year period, for that relatively small investment on what you could get back, and you go out and hire a consultant You just hire one consultant for $89,000 for a year and see what happens. You ain't gonna find one. So now we got a whole room full of consultants. We got a whole town full of consultants. So I think it would be I just think it's an ideal time and an ideal position to put it out there and let the county manager and county attorney see what we could do and let these folks come back to us with a recommendation of what works and what don't work. I just think it'd be a template for the whole other communities, Carl. I really do. If this board tries to set standards that they can't meet, then all their work's in vain. So
Maybe I wasn't clear. I'm not implying that we're sending, that the county would set a standard for build or construction or how they're gonna implement. I simply was referring to the funding piece of it. We would have a standard that we would use for funding.
And I think as this goes down the road, we'll have that with both entities. We'll know how much, if the mayor's budget is on track, how much does it cost to hook up to each house? What's the next step? And I just think that you're gonna have to start somewhere. And the more you kick the can down the road here, you're just starting all over. That's just my opinion.
There needs to be some ratio on funding, though. I agree with you. If Highlands right now is a $4 million project, and we're committing $500,000 over the next 2 years, this is a $12 million project, I think, and we're committing, I mean, there seems to me there's gotta be some funding ratio. Are we willing to commit to Little T based on funding ratio to Highlands? It's just, I think there's gotta be some guidance, some parameters. The next group that comes in, they have a $50 million thing. I mean, yeah, and I appreciate these, absolutely. It's obvious. I mean, the state, they sent a consultant up here to us. What was the guy? I mean, man, he flew into town here and he swooped us all here that night. I thought that was better than whipped cream, but that faded. I mean, it goes nowhere. It's like a lot of other issues we deal with. Mental health, all of these issues we deal with. It's just talk. And I'm absolutely in favor of funding and assisting, not funding, but assisting. But I think there's got to be some parameters involved rather than just doling out taxpayer dollars.
I think they give us the parameters, Paul.
I just got it, Ronnie. I can't absorb as quick as you can, so.
Well, it don't take me long to absorb after 5 years.
Yeah, we just got it. I was just gonna observe that if there's 4 counties that are already working this, there's a pretty good chance many of these issues have been addressed. Absolutely. And it may well be that we can get a lot of information from one or more of those counties. We'll charge you with that tax. County attorneys are real good to work with one another, and I wouldn't think that this would be any different, because I think most people working on this project would like to see widespread broadband.
So 178,000, 1,600 subscribers.
1,700 thereabouts.
Okay.
Potential.
So that's roughly $105 a subscriber. Yeah, but it's not, if you could take that and then apply it to Highlands, if you went on that basis, if y'all setting the bar at 178,000, you could then take that bar and move it to Highlands. But the problem is you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples, because they're in deployment stage, y'all are still in investigation stage, so it's tough to, it's so difficult to do. That's right. Moves, motions, where we headed?
Well, I don't know where to go to, but I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that this board, under the direction, given the authority of the county manager and county attorney, if permissible, that, because I think it will create a template for this county, is my opinion, that we authorize $500,000 to Highlands for their objectives with broadband in Highlands, $500,000, that's $250,000 a year, to be reviewed at any time that this board deems necessary. And the same motion for Little T, I would authorize $178,000 to be paid over a period of 2 years, and at 50% now, and 50% at a time when we deem necessary, not to exceed 2 years, and that we could have any updates at any time for this taxpayer dollar.
Presume that that motion would imply that appropriate interlocal agreements and/or
Of course.
other agreements.
Yeah, and that would
are
be
in
an
place.
interlocal agreement with Little T and their board, and Highlands, of course, and their board. So I put it in form of a motion. We'll just get off the dime and we'll see where it goes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
A second.
We have a second by Commissioner Fields. We're on the discussion stage. Discussion, Commissioner Hickman, anything?
Now, is this motion charging you and Derek the responsibility of bringing us some form of? Bringing you some information from which you can
To make
start
sure that
working
we're
on the
legal.
details?
Right.
Yeah,
And if we're legal, it passes, if we get the votes.
assuming you get
So your
appropriate
motion
agreements in
just
place.
is authorizing them to do the research?
And if the
Quickly.
research proves viable, then the motion goes on to say, we'll disperse the money as presented.
But it has to be proven that it's a legal option.
That's right.
We'll do it.
Pursuant to appropriate legal agreements.
Real legal review.
And the reason I second it, you're not gonna move it forward if you don't do that. If we don't get,
Oh,
look at,
absolutely. I think they need to get on this quickly and,
right, yeah, and let's look at it.
But it gives us something to put our teeth into, to see what's gonna happen. And these two groups are putting it out there. They've worked hard to do this for her. When the chairman and I met with them, their heart's into it. And when their heart's into it, you can't deny that. When Mayor Pat Taylor started this thing, he said, I don't know if it'll work or not, but we're gonna give her the best shot, and it's gonna work. You
I
gotta
think
believe
local
something.
initiatives are gonna be the answer, at least in the short run anyway.
I do.
Well, and I think we all agreed to that a few years ago. When Watchcaller sat back there in the back and talked about 50 houses up there in the Cartooja community. I think this is what, we don't know, at their next meeting next month, we don't know what's gonna come out of here, other requests. The tire people are listening.
But not doing that.
But they're listening, and they'll be here. Because that's the only way you can get it, is through the towers. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is crazy. We're having a conversation we did 5 years ago, and we ran it out here to a point. The region stepped in and says, you're going the wrong way. We can't get any money if you don't come in, if your county doesn't come in and join this region. And it's kind of threw up the brakes on us. We went to these meetings out here and listened to everybody's plan. And it's interesting that this thing has gone in a cycle. But next month, there'll be another group here wanting a piece of the pie. And that goes back to what you were saying. You're gonna have to design some kind of formula.
But I don't think there's another group, Ms. Shields, that's done this legwork in the county. There's nobody even close to that.
I think you're right. Having had the opportunity to meet him a few years ago, I think you're a go-getter. I think when the tire people come in and go into the community where you got 50 houses that's ready, they're gonna energize. When you come down to Oak Grove, down that way, this thing's gonna get interesting again. And we're looking at it from a local standpoint. We will be discouraged at a point in time not to do it locally. You've got to take this thing here and look at it regional if you want federal money and you want state money. Or you'll just have to allow on local money. it just worked out. Am I right or wrong, Mr. Baker? That's,
You're right, I worked with the Cartuga J people on
Yeah,
that project.
you did.
And, you know, I think we need local money to get federal money to, you know, the first thing they look at is how committed is the community? Well, the community, people are committed, you know, but the community government is where they tend to look.
I believe it's called leadership.
Something like that. So, I mean, yeah, the money we're asking for isn't gonna build this out, not even closely, obviously, but it will help us get the money necessary to build it out. And the money is there, it is available, and, but it takes effort and expertise to go get that, just like it takes effort and expertise to architect the network that we're working on. Cartuga J was a very interesting start model. I worked with them, I went to Asheville with them, and talked to the company that was gonna, you know, provide the towers and the service and so forth. And frankly, when we started this quest, we thought it was gonna be wireless for us as well, just like Cartuga J. But as we matured our understanding of both our circumstances and the technology, we found out that fiber, if you can get a power line to somebody's house, I can get fiber to their house. It's just that simple. It's just that complicated, because there's a lot of poles and lines involved to do that. So that's why you see the kind of footage that Pat was showing, 12 miles of fiber, 4 or 5.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillespie, any comments?
I just, there's no one on this board that is more supportive of broadband development in Macon County. I don't think it would hurt us to kick the can down the road to the next meeting to come up, to give the county manager opportunity to come up with a model, that funding model that we can use moving forward, so that we can ensure that we're being fair to all the citizens of Macon County.
Thank you.
there's one other wrinkle, and there's a lot of wrinkles here. LBJ.
Mm-hmm.
Here you got a educational institution up there. When they bring students in, they've had access wherever they've come from, South Carolina. They're coming to a dead-end road. You got an LBJ. When those teachers up there, they have to go someplace else to do their homework. It's a crying shame. That's an educational institution that we've tried to put something together, and I think you just get bluffed around, and it works.
They finally did get a federal grant.
But they're only 2,000 feet from the Balsam line.
That's right.
That's the tragedy of that one.
But they got a federal grant to hook up.
That's what we're gonna get.
All right, this is why you as the taxpayers pay me, I think, 7.5 cents an hour to sit up here. It's to make decisions like this.
He makes more than the rest of them.
And it's tough, and I'm gonna reflect and be very front forward and tell you how I feel about this. Makes me want to look in the mirror as chairman of this board and of this county, and makes me want to kick myself for not having this completed and not pushing this board harder to have the decisions, the reflections that Commissioner Gillespie's having and that Commissioner Bill's having to have this worked out beforehand, so we could have some legitimate decision. So I personally, as I've said earlier, I'm in support of Commissioner Bill's motion. However, I have reservations because of the exact reasoning, as I mentioned earlier, that Commissioner Gillespie mentioned. I think we need to have some type of a formula. But again, when I look in the mirror and I look at myself, I don't want to be the reason that's holding this back any longer than the years that I've already been as a commissioner, and held this back by not doing more than what I could have. So I will support this motion tonight, but I can assure each and every one of you, as well as members on this board, I'm going to be pushing as hard as I absolutely can to come up with some type of ideas, some type of concepts that we can all agree with, hopefully as a board moving forward, that we have some type of legitimate reasoning and direction that we can give other groups moving forward, so that we can provide a clear path of diversifying, again, taxpayer dollars that you all are a part of. But is it fair from someone from Nantahala to be supporting this? It's not helping them one little bit. We do a lot of that around. We do a lot of that around the county with a lot of different things. I know good and well that Scaly, or the Flats area is, I'm gonna pick on y'all for a minute. As we had this discussion at your community meeting, y'all are a tremendous portion of Macon County's tax base. Maybe 8%, something like that roughly. But what do you get back in general that you see from the county? I mean, you get a recycling center, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense to have, you don't have enough population to have a school there. Look at some of our big spenders. It doesn't make sense to have the jail there. It doesn't make sense to have social services there because the population's there. So a lot of our big money topics, it makes sense to have right here in your population center. So I think as a part of government, you have to pull forward for that. But again, I don't want to hold either one of these groups back if we can help them and get rolling forward as absolutely quick as we can. But I will support this, but I am going to again reflect, look at myself in the mirror, and make sure that I can do a better job as a leader with this board to make sure we have some type of solution moving forward.
So clear direction to legal counsel and county manager is what? For
They're gonna, my motion states that the county manager and the county attorney are going to survey and do a legal review to make sure that my motion is in order, that we can disperse the funds as I outlined. If it is in order and we can disperse the funds, those funds that I put in my motion will be dispersed as I put in my motion. And if it's not, we go back to the drawing board.
I think you're gonna have to have the agreements before you can make a
Well,
final.
yeah, but we'll know.
You're gonna have.
The agreement's one thing. Find out if we can even do agreements another. But this gets us rolling. This gets us started.
All right, any further comments and call the question? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. So let the record reflect that Commissioner Shields, Bill, Tate, and Higdon voted aye. Commissioner Gillespie voted nay. And we'll be taking this back up. I understand all decisions. So thank you all. If y'all would like to ease out, you're welcome to at this point. If you'd like to stay for the rest of our 2 to 3 hours, feel free.
Thank you for making it a test.
Jim.
I'm going to circle back to it.
Yeah.
At the end of public comment.
I'm Joe Eagles.
Yes, hey Joe, how are you? Yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah.
Absolutely, let me give you. We're a little, we may be a little different.
Do I owe you a phone call? Okay.
Familiar with that. All of our authority.
You wanna go make one right now? Pull the number down there.
We have no authority.
I'm going to call a 2-minute recess. We'll make this quick.
I'll try.
We're going to gonna call us back to order. Will you clear them out back there? Yep. Thank you, sir. I'm gonna call us back to order. Commissioner Bill had a quick report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick report from the RPO and the DOT. If you didn't get the email, the DOT has suspended all engineering projects across our region, across the state. The engineering phase, not construction, but without the engineering, of course, there's not going to be construction. None in Macon County are affected except for one thing that me and Mr. Morgan is very aware of, and that is the traffic problem at MVI and middle grade school. We've asked for a traffic study there, which comes under engineering. We will be bringing this up on Monday, the last Monday in the month at our RPO, and asking, and the only thing I ask, Mr. Chairman, is by consensus of the board, that I can say that the Macon County Board of County Commissioners unanimously asked that this study go forward now. If they start the study now, we might be able to put it in for funding next year. So, so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that they authorize me to say that the board does support moving ahead with this engineering at the MVI middle grade school, even though it has been suspended statewide. This is a traffic study, and my argument's going to be that it's in a different set than what, it's not like engineering or surveying for expansion of a road. It's to fix that, try to get something done for those schools in the morning. And it needs to be done, and they'll do it, so we're going to request that with the blessing of this board, Mr. Chairman.
And could you also remind them to try to be out there about 7:15 in the morning with the officers?
Wesley Grindstaff was there twice this week at 7:15.
Do we need to do that in the form of a motion or just a
Just a consensus. If anybody has a problem with it, I won't bring it up, but I don't think nobody objects to that.
With that, so, everybody good with that, moving forward with that study? Okay, that sounds good. All right, I'm gonna circle back to, additions to, the agenda, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if we could, is Shelley Foreman or anybody with Value Health?
No, we're gonna pull that.
Okay, if we could then pull item number 11B from new business. Also, if we could pull item 12F from the consent agenda. And also, Mr. Chairman, if we could add to appointments, another seat to the Recreation Commission, for which we have received application and will be considering another name there, so that'll be 3. And then also add a planning board appointment consideration as well. That'll be 13C.
Okay. All right, any other items, Mr. Attorney?
I was just gonna ask, is the billing guide for public health, is that gonna be considered elsewhere this evening?
No.
Or just?
No, that's pulled.
For a later date?
It's pulled from the agenda, yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, I'll catch you there.
Okay.
I may
Or
have
anything?
missed it. Did you add the settlement report?
Yes,
Under
I did.
consent.
I would like to add also the settlement report, which came as an attachment to the agenda packet with the August 13th minutes, which I emailed to you. That settlement report is available here in hard copy for you, and it needs to be, for the record, noted that that settlement report will be inserted into item 12E on the consent agenda.
Okay. We may be talking about the same thing. So, yeah, I've got 2 items I would like to address. There's a small funding request from the Franklin Panther Regiment Marching Band. If we can add it as, let's just, instead of trying to move the numbers up, let's put it as 11E. And then, per our Recreation Commission meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I've got a little item I want to discuss regarding a walking track at the dog park, the new dog park. Is there anything else? Oh, do we need to sing Commissioner Bill happy birthday when you put that
Yes,
as a
you
line
do.
item?
You throw money at him.
Don't take checks?
Yeah.
Cash? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Bill. Second. Second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to Item 10, old business decision regarding telecommunications tower application for a 175-foot monopole tower at 575 CR Cave Road. But we have had two public hearings upon this matter, and I think tonight we're going to be finally making a decision on it. We did have Mr. Jeff Studs that signed up for public comment on this here because that other I knew was going to be John and Mr. Studs. We decided to maybe so it might be potentially relevant, but I think as our Mr. Attorney said, we can't take anything.
I think he's free to make public comment.
Okay.
But what we need to understand is the information that he presents this evening is not evidence that you decide this case on.
Okay.
The evidence has been closed. The
Okay.
hearing has been closed. There's not a public hearing for this scheduled for this evening, and it can't be received as evidence.
Okay.
But he can certainly make a public statement.
Okay. Mr. Studs, the podium is yours. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, so the reason I asked for a couple minutes this evening is because in our second hearing, a piece of information that was presented I felt was misleading, and when I tried to raise that issue with the commission, I was told I'd need a further motion to speak, and the process was over, and I kind of got shut down. So I wrote a letter basically with information. I won't present it if you're telling me it's not legal to, but I'm countering a piece of information. It's not new information. I'm just counting a fact or a piece of information that was presented to the board. That's my objective for this evening. So you all decide whether you're willing to receive the information. So
We'll have to bow to our attorney on.
I mean, I can show you, sir, if you want to see what it is.
I think ultimately, this board has to decide whether or not they're receiving new information. And if what you're providing is new information or a regurgitation, if you will, of information that's already been provided, if you're asking them to receive evidence upon which to make a decision, I don't think they can consider that at this point.
Okay, so basically then, basically what you said is you can't take new information or regurgitate it, so basically that pretty much shuts me down for any comment, because I'm gonna comment on past conversation.
I mean, you can make a comment, but they simply can hear it,
Okay.
and they can listen to it.
Okay,
The problem is it's not information that they can utilize
okay.
in their
Okay.
decision-making process.
Can I show a graphic as a part of that, even if they don't utilize this information, so they can understand what I'm saying?
You have a right to make a public statement in this meeting.
Okay.
And I think our rules of procedure limit you to, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah,
5 minutes,
I
believe
only
it is.
need a couple minutes. I just would like to put a graphic in front of you so you can at least understand what I'm saying.
But understand, it's not the public hearing, it's
Understand.
not for purpose of receiving evidence.
Understand, sir. That makes sense now. Basically, if you look at this, that graph's gonna look very familiar to you. And that was presented as evidence. If you see the first graph and the second graph, was presented as evidence by Verizon as to why the alternate site wouldn't work. And in the comments, the Verizon representative said, see, you see more red and green on the first chart than you do on the second chart. And what I noticed in the meeting, if you look at the heading on both of those, one says the information was given at the 170-foot level. The second chart shows at the 100-foot level. What was not taken into consideration in that analysis is I showed using Macon County GIS information that a tower of 170 feet was possible from my site. So I'm only trying to convey that it was not a fair comparison. One was run at 100 feet, one was run at 170. Clearly the colors would be different once you start encountering the tree line and other topography. Other point I want to make is if you look at the second pair of graphs and you look at the outline, the top chart is the 170 foot, the bottom chart is the 100-foot level. Notice the footprint of the energy. It's almost identical. So if you were to raise that second graph another 70 feet and broadcast the same amount of energy, you can clearly see the charts would be the same. So all I want to say is this analysis is used as reasoning for saying that my alternate site was not as good a site or would not be technically possible was completely false. And that's the only comments I want to make.
Mr. Studs.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, do we have any further discussion? Get a motion to Crickets.
Well, it's, you know, we've tossed this thing around for a couple of meetings, and, you know, Verizon's understanding, we appreciate public comment, public input, but Verizon's understudies in compliance with the ordinance that we have in effect now. They addressed all parameters according to Jack of the ordinance. I don't know which side's best, I'm not in the, you know, I don't know why they choose side A over side B. But I understand that Verizon has spent some money and some time and some engineering on choosing a side, addressing the conditions in our ordinance, and that doesn't leave me much. I mean, there's gonna be public opposition to any place you put a tower. But if they've complied with the provisions in the ordinance, then I have some reservations based on the neighborhood, how it's gonna affect the neighborhood. But if we say no to Verizon, what message does that send? We've been talking about broadband here earlier tonight. I mean, we're wanting to bring more of this into Macon County. Wish I had it on Burnetown, but I'm in support of moving forward on this. And based on that, if no one else, well, I'll make a motion that we approve the application that's submitted by Verizon for this tower on Cave Road.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I think,
Mr. Attorney.
no, strike that. I think you got, with a motion, I think my comment's not appropriate at this point. Well, I want to hear from legal counsel. I think to the extent that there is a motion, if the motion is to approve, it's to approve the application and to issue a building permit, basically in accordance with the terms of the ordinance in question. And there are a handful of things that need to go in to an approval letter, and a handful of things that would need to go into the actual building permit itself based on the terms of the ordinance itself. So, but I think it's probably important to see if there's a consensus one way or the other. If there's a consensus being built on your motion, then I can certainly provide you with those terms that would need to go into the motion or be added to the motion.
And I'll rescind my motion based upon input from council.
I don't think that's what he's suggesting.
No, I think you can have the discussion, and you'll probably determine from your discussion
Okay,
whether
yeah,
there's
which way it's gonna go,
consensus
so-
one way or
But
the
you're
other.
saying
Yeah.
if we decide,
Sure.
if this board decides to follow his motion and vote for that, you've got a list of
Sure.
suggestions on how that needs to happen, and I'm sure if we don't decide, you probably got a list of suggestions on how that happens as well. So either way you look
I
at it,
do.
I'm with you.
I
Okay, so
do.
we appreciate your input, Chester, very much.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to approve as presented?
I need to ask a question if I could of Jack. Jack, does their application fully comply with the ordinance?
Yes, sir. That's my ability to understand the ordinance and the application, yes. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Gillespie, sorry. Now we enter the discussion stage. We've heard Commissioner Higdon's points. Anyone else like to make a point or ask a question?
I'm not, I think what I'm about to say is something new, and I'm not sure that's appropriate. A reason that I'm in agreement with the motion, and the reason I'm in agreement with your second, but I'm not sure that I can share my rhyme and reason why I'm in agreement with this motion. When you said that he couldn't bring you information there.
Yeah, I
Yours
mean,
is not evidence, so.
I'm sorry.
His would be evidence.
yours is not evidence, but
You
and
can
I
say
think
anything
you
else,
can,
though.
this is a deliberation process here.
Now, if I've done something wrong, you gotta stop me real quick.
I will. If you begin to present something
really you should be making your decision, and this may help you. You should make your decision based on the evidence that was presented, not something that you may have gotten, a thought that you had, or that you may have seen when you rode by the property or whatnot. This decision is based on the evidence that was brought to this board. And that's all. You don't get to consider anything else.
That I think I'm out of bounds, because something changed my mind. I didn't go to the property.
Okay.
I went to the mapping department.
Well, you need to make your decision based strictly upon the evidence that was brought to you, and if you can't do that, then you need to let the board know that.
The evidence that I've sought through the mapping department, it won't change my mind.
Yeah,
of
okay.
that.
I think that what's important is for each of you to search within yourself and make sure that your decision is based strictly upon the information that has been brought to you in the course of this hearing that took place over 2 evenings.
I think his decision is made based on the locations of each of the location as proposed by Mr. Stubbs versus the location as proposed by Verizon. Is that right, Mr. Shields, those tower locations? That's what you used to make the decision with the
The
location.
proposed site, and I think that's what Mr. Higdon, Mr. Gillespie is, that's their motion, that the proposed site be there. And the information that I sought through the mapping department influenced my decision that I support staying on the proposed site. But I don't know if you want to hear a rhyme and reason for it.
I don't think it would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, yeah, based on evidence, based on the fact they complied with the ordinance, whether the ordinance is good or bad, is not what we're deciding.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it matters what this board does. If you go back and read that legislation, and I called Raleigh twice, I really don't think it matters what this board does. I think they're gonna build the tower if they wanna build the tower, regardless of the ordinance. The way with this new legislation. What really gets me is, I don't think that Miss Bradley would ever do anything to harm her neighbors. I really don't think that. But what gets me is what the Verizon guy said, standing right there. The reason that they had to do it in Moore County, they made us. Now, this ain't new evidence. This is existing evidence. This is Highlands, North Carolina. This is Highlands. It don't interfere. He said, you can't get, it interferes with all the stuff that, the wavelengths, crock. It don't interfere with nothing. This is another picture of Highlands. And so, the only reason they didn't camouflage this pole that's gonna be put up, and I'm gonna support Mr. Higdon's motion because I don't think we got a choice. But that could have been camouflaged just simply because Verizon didn't wanna spend the money. Because he said Moore County made us. But I do think, and I think Paul hinted this is a good time to revisit that ordinance because of this situation. It's a good time to revisit it and try to give us a little bit more teeth. At the end of the day, I don't think it matters. I don't think how this board votes on this tower can, if Miss Bradley wants to go into contract with these folks and they put the tower up, I think that's going to happen regardless. The only thing it could do is cause us a lawsuit, which we'd lose according to what I have found out. So, with that, I'm going to reluctantly support this motion. I do think it will benefit the county as a whole. I think if we set the pattern of refusing these, we're in trouble. But I do think it could have been disguised and for no reason. I mean, you're talking about a company that grossed $30 billion. And to say they can't camouflage a 170-foot pole, I don't buy that. But that's just my opinion, Mr. Chairman. And But I too will support this motion because I don't think this board really has a choice. And I think the legislature of North Carolina has put us in this position, that we have no more control in our county.
You recommend some changes?
I'd recommend that the planning board take that up if Mr. Morgan, if the chairman, and Mr. Gillespie, who represents the planning board, I think it'd be a good time to look at that.
Okay, before I call the question, all of y'all have spoken, I'll speak as well. To me, this was the first night we heard this was a done deal in my mind for a lot of the same reasons that y'all are speaking. When Mr. Morgan gave us his, testimony that it meets all the stipulations that the county has to, that we currently set forward, I don't think it's up to me, and maybe this is my personal opinion, it's up to me to get in the opinions of second guessing every little comment, every little twig, every little 10 feet that it could be moved to try and make everyone in the county 100% happy with it. We heard a lot of testimony of reasons why it should be moved. We heard a lot of testimony why it should be there. We heard a lot of testimony that it shouldn't be there at all, but I think when it just boils down to it, Macon County is not very forward-thinking, hasn't moved very far along with a lot of our restrictions. Zoning is somewhat still of a curse word in this county. It's good in some parts and other, but it currently meets what we have set forth, so I'll support it. So with that saying, Chester, it sounds like we know what our decision is going to be, and I think you have some recommendations on how the motion needed to be framed.
Yeah, I think if there's an inclination to approve, then as the chair, I would recommend that you entertain a motion along this line.
Okay. One, authorizing the motion authorizes the county manager in cooperation with the county attorney to issue a written letter of approval to the applicant within a reasonable period of time, and such written approval shall contain A, provisions that if the construction is not started within 6 months from the date of issuance of the building permit, the wireless support structure building permit shall expire. This provision shall likewise be contained in the building permit. B, the owner of the proposed wireless support structure shall record in the Macon County Register of Deeds office a letter of intent prior to the issuance of the building permit, which complies with Statute 154.08 G of Chapter 154 of the Macon County Code of Ordinances, Wireless Telecommunications Facilities Ordinance. Item C, approval and building permit shall require the facilities to be constructed within at least 24 months. Item E, a provision that the approval and the building permit are issued in reliance upon a presumption that the wireless support structure will in fact conform to the plans which were submitted as the basis for the building permit, and once erected, the wireless support structure must continue to be at all times maintained in compliance with the provisions of Chapter 154 of the Macon County Code of Ordinances. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 11B was removed from our agenda.
10B, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. 10B, thank y'all. Consideration of Macon County Involuntary Commitment Transportation Agreement.
Gentlemen, in your agenda package, there is a proposed agreement or memorandum of agreement for involuntary commitment transportation. I've worked with the county manager on that as well as other stakeholders. It has been approved, as I understand it, by the town of Highlands. It has been approved by the town of Franklin, and we're now the one that needs to approve it.
Could we get a motion to approve, say, Mr. Manager? Sorry.
Just
thought you were
again,
gonna
Mr.
say
Chairman,
something.
just to remind you that the agreement as presented, and the sheriff can certainly attest to it as he worked with us on it, it outlines how we currently handle the involuntary commitment transportation process in Macon County between us and the municipalities.
Motion to approve.
A motion by Commissioner Bill,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we get back in order again. Item 11, new business, detention center medical services contract. Attorney James.
Gentlemen, I have provided to each of you a thick document by email and then a hard copy this evening. Mr. Higdon was kind enough to point out a typographical error in paragraph number 2. The word "to" immediately before September should be stricken. And I can fix that. The medical services agreement is designed to deal with the county and sheriff's obligation to make sure that inmates at the Macon County Detention Center receive the medical care that they're entitled by law to receive when they are inmates at the medical care center. The proposed agreement is with Dr. Jason Creel, who has been serving in that capacity for some time. We learned that it was time for a new contract, and so the county manager and I began working on one. This is the document that we have settled upon. I would recommend that you authorize to approve the contract, the medical services contract, as well as the policies that have been presented and attached to it. These are policies that have been adopted by your sheriff, but the one dealing with the medical plan needs to be approved by the county commissioners. And then, last, you need to approve the HIPAA Business Associate Agreement, which is attached as Exhibit 15 to that document.
Sheriff, we're still holding out for Medicaid for prisoners. If it don't, I mean, you just look through this of what, they don't even have, they can just voice that I need to go to the hospital.
Yes.
I mean, it's, but unless we get some help somewhere, I know what your budget does, we look at it every year. And, but thank goodness we got a local doctor that's willing to do it, I guess. That's,
He does a great job.
that's the only bright point I see.
Yeah. He's done a great job for us for many years now.
So as liaison to the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the contract between Dr. Jason Creel and Macon County for the medical services to the Macon County jail population.
Could you include in that the approval of the medical plan, which is attached,
and the approval
as well as the HIPAA Business Associate Agreement?
Exactly.
And authorize your county manager to execute it.
Exactly.
There you go.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bill, a second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. All right, item 11B was removed. I tried to speed us along earlier by doing that. Item 11C, rejection of bid number 4310-08 due to a change in specifications. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quickly, this is a matter of administrative housekeeping involving the vehicle bids that were issued for the Sheriff's Department. After those bids were made and received, needs changed in the Sheriff's Department. Thus, as a consequence, we're requesting that the bids received prior to this change in need at the Sheriff's Department be rejected in the best interest of the county.
Further elaboration, different vehicle is needed now, is my
Yes,
understanding.
based on a change in the sheriff's needs occurring after the bid was released.
Motion to approve the rejection, Mr.
Got a
Chairman.
motion by Commissioner Bill,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shields. All in favor? Aye. All right, ladies, thank y'all for your patience. Community care clinic funding request. You've learned a whole lot about broadband and what else tonight?
Yeah, I live in Otto. I was excited to hear about broadband in Otto. That's wonderful.
Well,
And I do appreciate you all taking the time to let me come in and talk to you.
I'm the executive director at Community Care Clinic of Franklin. We see our patients at night on Mondays and Wednesday nights, and our office is located at the Macon County Health Department building. We have a symbiotic relationship with the health department. They refer quite a bit of patients to us that present to them that do not have insurance. Our specialty is, our reason for being is we provide primary health care for free to patients that are citizens of Macon County that do not have insurance and also are low income. Being low income does not mean they're not working. Quite a bit of them do work part-time, work in the trades, and are not offered health insurance through their jobs, and therefore cannot afford the high cost of medical care. There's a limited number of providers even in our county that are even accepting new patients. So the reason that we're here actually tonight, though, is we've had a funding crisis. Our clinic, when I started working there last year, was well funded through the state of North Carolina. When that funding cycle came up for renewal, then that funding was not approved at this time. They said we can apply again for next year. That was a huge budget drop in our funding, and we started going into survival mode. We've started looking for additional funds. We've approached members of the community. We've approached the Dogwood Trust Health Foundations. They are all offering to help and have provided some funds, but we are asking for the county support also to be part of the matching funds to allow us to partner with these other foundations to help us while we pursue other funding to keep us open and keep us operating. I made some notes just about who we are. I believe a lot of you know about our clinic. We provide a vital service to the citizens of Macon County, to those that don't have health insurance. We provide primary health care to over 800 active patients at our free clinic. We are the safety net for these vulnerable people. We had over 1,000 patient encounters in the past year ending June of 2019. Demand has increased lately. We're seeing multiple new patients at every clinic night that we are open lately. In a time of a drastic funding reduction, we are experiencing an increase in our patient needs. We need help with the funding to allow us to continue to meet the needs of our community. Our clinic benefits the overall community of Macon County by saving taxpayer dollars for unnecessary ER visits that the patients can't pay for. We receive a large number of referrals, as I said, from Macon County Health Department of uninsured patients. Mr. Rocco has expressed his support for our clinic for this reason and other reasons. Our patients have expressed their gratitude to us for our free clinical medical care. It often helps newly diagnosed diabetic patients learn how to use insulin, how to control their diet, how to get their disease process under control, which then prevents future hospitalizations of, that they can't afford, of disease progression. I've had patients come up to me clinic nights crying and telling me they don't know what they would have done without our clinic. They hug us, they give us thank you cards. They are so grateful for the services that we provide. They are very needy in that they have delayed getting care. Sometimes they come in with injuries that had happened a month prior that they just did not address because they did not know where to go. And somebody in their family member or in their community told them about our free clinic and they found us. So I'm asking the county to please help us, help our patients by providing us funds in the amount of $75,000, which would support our clinical operations while we continue to actively seek new grants and resources. The county and community support is critical to our grant applications with the two Dogwood Trust Health Foundations, who we are hoping to partner with in the future. Thank you for allowing me to make this request.
Mr. Chairman, I met with Ms. Stiles as the county manager, and we discussed several options. Of course, I'm a great supporter of the Community Care Clinic. Macon County has now dropped to 90th 90th in the state in uninsured people per capita. There's only 10 counties worse than Macon County in uninsured people. And without the community care clinic, let's say you go to a doctor's office, you have to prepay money up front. I just think it's a wonderful program for our folks that don't have insurance, and that number is growing. It grew from 443 last year to over 600, and it continues to grow. It's a wonderful group of volunteers. But now to get to the money, Ms. Stiles and some of the board members did talk with us. And I'm certainly not against the $75,000. I think it would be more prudent because they have received some monies from the Highlands Trust. It's going to come through next month. I think it would be prudent for this board to consider a funding of 50% of that, or around $37,000, and to see how, because I really think that through the Nantahala Trust or the Dogwood Trust, if they don't fund this, they're not going to fund anything. If they don't fund this, they won't fund nothing. So I really think they're going to get their funding. The Office of Rural Health is where they got their funding for years and years, and then after so many years, they're going to bypass you and they're going to move on somewhere else. And that's what's happened here. And they provide $145,000 a year to the community care clinic. They are expenses in running they're short on help now, and I think the money that we could, if this board agrees, even at the 37 mark, Ms. Stiles, that would give an opportunity to bring more help into the clinic.
Yes.
That you have to pay. I mean,
Yes.
you have a lot of good volunteers and a wonderful board, but you still have to pay some of these folks. So what I'd suggest, Mr. Chairman, is this is another one of those situations, sort of like the broadband, where we need to keep in contact with Ms. Stiles, keep in contact with her board members, and see how we're doing, and maybe they don't need the rest of 75. But I would make a motion that we authorize a grant to them of $37,500. I know, Chester, you're going to speak for 30 minutes. I'm going to finish first. $37,500 from our general fund, as this is a one-time expense, and Chester can put whatever legalese he needs to that.
You have to have a second before you speak.
Go ahead.
Chester will never need a second.
You got a second by Commissioner Shields. Go ahead, Chester, it's been your discussion.
He's nailed it on the head. In order to do this with a nonprofit, we're gonna have to enter into an appropriate agreement. And I'll need to get the technical legal name of the entity.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Stiles, you're welcome to argue my point of the 50%, because I'm just trying to get, if the 75 don't pass, we're really out the yard. So I know that that's not exactly, but at least it gives us, you can monitor it, and if things get in a pinch, that gives us a little leeway. Maybe we can come back to this board.
That's what I would suggest, is that if we could be given an opportunity in the future to come back as we progress through where we're operating now on a month-to-month basis, and as we make progress, or as we find dead ends, that we'd be able to come back and approach you in the future. And we would be very grateful for the funds if you would be
Well, it's one of those
so
programs
wonderful.
where, this is, in my opinion, is taxpayer dollars well spent, because you're helping those the most needy, not only in the physical health, but in the mental health also. And those cuts, if they come through as we think they will, they're going to be devastating to us. So we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Does the city organizations also help?
Yes, I've spoken before to Rotary groups, and they've both funded us some money, and I've spoken before several churches, and they've funded us some money, so we are getting community support. They just have smaller dollar amounts that they're able to provide, 500 or 1,000 or 3,000, and we do have a large cost of staffing and providers and medications and medical supplies.
Did you make application to the community funding pool, or did your organization qualify?
We did. We qualified. We did receive a funding from that, at the
You did
beginning of the,
receive
we
any
did,
Oh,
at the beginning of the year, yes. That pays for a provider for one clinic for about 6 months.
And in all honesty, Paul, that was before they knew they would not be receiving the
Right.
$145,000.
We thought it would be matching towards the Office of Rural Health grant, and
and that may give us cause to review our community funding through program, I mean, you know.
Well, the reason that they're coming back is they didn't receive a grant that they had received
Yeah, I
for
know.
years on
That's-
end.
Yeah, that's obvious, but I think that gives us cause to review our protocol, but I do appreciate the work that y'all do.
thank you.
Did I get a second? Commissioner Gillespie, yes. Commissioner Shields, second. Commissioner Gillespie, any questions? Just refresh my memory, do y'all still operate a clinic in Highlands as well, or just?
That's a separate entity. We
Separate
consider them
entity.
a sister clinic.
Okay.
We actually share some patients. Some of our patients see both of our clinics,
Do
but
they receive their funding as well, or are they receiving it from?
they were in
I
our,
don't know. That's what
yeah,
I'm
they were
just
in our
saying.
Office of Rural Health grant originally, and so their funding stopped at the same time our funding stopped. They have other sources of funds that they pursue up in Highlands. They have donors in Highlands, and they have different grants that they apply for independent of us. They also applied to the Highlands Cashiers Health Foundation. I believe they were also awarded some funding there.
I'm probably gonna ask some questions you probably don't want me to ask, but I'm curious. Is there a reason that the two of you don't combine?
It's before my time,
Okay.
so,
I'm just out of curiosity, because I always thought you were part of the same.
Do you want me to speak to that?
Sure, well, I'm just out
this
of
is one of our
curiosity.
board
Okay,
members
sure.
and a founding board member.
Just when the Highlands Community Care Clinic started the Franklin Clinic, because once they started operating, they realized a lot of their patients came from Franklin all the way to Highlands to be seen. So they started the clinic down here. And they did, through an Office of Rural Health grant, fund the clinic down here the first 3 years it operated. But by the time that 3-year period was up, they kind of pushed the baby out of the nest. You know, they were like, okay, you guys need to fly on your own.
Starting a new church.
And then but we worked very well together, and we have collaborated on different grants, like the Office of Rural Health grant, and shared a lot of other things. They've been very supportive.
Yeah,
of our
we
work.
share a LabCorp contract where we can have free labs drawn for our patients, that they're drawn at the health department, and LabCorp does it out of free courtesy for both of our organizations, so it's a shared contract in that case.
Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
It's,
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, thank you very much.
So Chester and the county manager will be in touch?
Yes.
By chance have a business card
I
or
do.
something?
I'll bring it.
All right, item 11E, I received an email this afternoon. From the Panther Regiment Marching Band, requested something to do with the Vietnam veterans, $500. Commissioner Shields, do you have a little more information on this?
This coming December, the Franklin High School Marching Panther Regiment Band will be going to All-State Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana, perform for over 90,000 people, and on national TV for the Sugar Bowl halftime show and the Sugar Bowl parade down the world-famous Bourbon Street. Okay, that's good, but what they want to do now is they're taking 100 students. They want to go to the National World War II Museum to give the students a full experience of visiting the World War II Museum while they're there. This is not part of the trip package and does not cost extra, and does cost extra to the tune of about $42, and so that equals about $4,200. At this time, they're trying to fundraise and raise $4,200. The Vietnam Veterans of America last Thursday night wrote them a check for $500 to go towards this fundraiser, and then the town of Franklin is going to gonna have a request of $500 too to go to the band for the museum, and they're asking us for a donation. And I guess I'll say $500. Take it out of contingency fund to go to the Franklin High School Marching Band for the trip to New Orleans to the museum, World War II museum. And I think it'd be very educational for those young people.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second. I'll start off discussion real quick. I can't disagree even in the least bit that this is not an outstanding opportunity for some kids from our county. I think it's fantastic, so I will support this. I'm gonna ask out of curiosity, as liaisons, is there something that the school board, do they hold any funds for stuff like this, or is, I'm asking, I don't know. I mean, I'm in support of it, obviously, but I'm just
No, they do
curious
their-
how the process works.
They have to do fundraising requests through the school board. Whoever, whatever activity you're gonna do, outside of what's part of your budget, you have to put on a fundraiser. And obviously, they've been fundraising over the years to get in this trip. But now that they wanna do something extra on this trip, they'll have to provide those funds themselves through the parents or whatever it may be.
If you've never been to the World War II Museum, we
I
went.
have.
It's a very, it's an enlightening experience that I wanted to stay all day, but somebody rushed me. And, but it's a part of history that a lot of these kids really don't know about, and they should.
It'd be acceptable, Mr. Shields, if the check was written to the Macon County School Board designated for this use.
If you're not asking for it to be tax deductible, we had to do some things, personal checks and stuff, we had to write it out to them.
We're not gonna have any tax deductible issues
That'd be
there.
fine, you can write it out to Santa Claus, but as long as they get it.
That would be my recommendation. And designate it for that specific purpose.
It's an expensive night.
As long as they get it, I don't care.
Your
That's right.
recommendation is to Macon County Schools.
School board.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We just make the checks normally to Macon County Schools, their monthly allotments.
All right. The walking track. This afternoon's recreation committee meeting, there was some discussion, and we'll pass these maps out. I don't know if any of y'all have been by there lately to see the progress, but it's trucking right along. But now that they're done, for a very minimal amount of money, they're talking about going ahead and putting a walking trail around it. Mr. Manager, please help my memory. I think they've got the funds already in their budget where they can handle this, but I think they're just kind of wanting our blessing to go ahead and move forward, that we would be okay with a.
Yes, what it is, this is
trail, so.
an addition to the original project, the walking track. However, it would allow for, excuse me?
A change order.
It's not a change order.
No, not a change order. This is something that I think was discussed at the Rec Commission after, but it was not approved in the funding for the project. I have spoke with the Recreation Director, who has the funds in his property and building improvements that would allow us to accomplish this, Mr. Chairman, with no amendment other than we would need to move the funds from his recreation, property and building improvements into the project fund.
Okay.
So, the motion would just simply need to state that,
What was
along
that
with
amount?
the amount
What was
that,
that amount, yeah?
and I think it was $4,500
That sounds about right.
that he had
I
spoke to me
can't
today
remember.
about.
A lot of things going through my mind since 4 o'clock.
And if it wasn't, it was $4,500, that is confirmed.
It's already in the budget.
It's already in the recreation department's
No additional funds.
property
We're
and
just-
building improvements. We're just moving it from there into the project fund.
If we want to.
Who's
Put a
going
walking
to
trail there,
maintain
so.
this dog park
County,
and the trail?
county.
I just had never asked.
Have you been by? Have you been by?
Oh,
Come along.
regularly. Looks good.
All right, we get a motion to approve or not approve or let it rest?
Sure, that's,
Make a motion to be approved as
All right, we have a
presented.
motion by Commissioner
Second.
Shields, second by Commissioner Bill. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll let frogs know that it has been done. The meeting tomorrow.
All right, sorry, gentlemen. Consent agenda, we removed item 11E, the Macon County Public Health Billing Guide and fee changes. And we added the settlement report. If there's anything anybody would like to discuss further or remove, we can, or we can approve the whole consent agenda with one motion and vote.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Commissioner Higdon,
Second.
second by Commissioner Shields. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have appointments, Southwestern Community College Board of Trustees. We have one, I presume, I've learned a lot about Southwestern here lately. We have, how many members are on that board total?
I want to say 15,
15 Board of Trustees?
I believe so. I'd like to make, we got, these numbers get a little, you got two from this board, and you got a governor's appointment. There's close to 15 or 16.
I'm learning a lot. I think we had, my understanding we've had, y'all proceed. Y'all are liaisons. Y'all help me out here.
Okay, let me make a motion.
Sure.
I'm still on the trustee board. I'd like to make a motion that Brett Rogers to take be on the board of trustees, taking the place of Terry Bell.
Okay. How long did Terry serve?
32 years.
Do we need to send him a thank you or anything, or should we?
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a motion,
And
Mr. Brett Rogers.
of Duotech, his business and industry.
Oh, we send him from Southwestern send him.
Maybe, I don't know, I'm just asking.
We've had
He was
representing the county.
He's been our representative 32 years?
The only person served longer was Teresa,
Oh my gosh.
and he was yanked and Carl was put on.
He's within striking distance. All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second, all in favor? Aye. All right, we have Recreation Commission, we have 2 seats open, we've received 1 application, and that was from, Timothy Crabtree.
Yes, sir. One application from Timothy Crabtree. That one won't be in the, that is in your application packet.
Yep, we've got it, we have another seat open on the Recreation Commission, and we'd love to have someone from the, west side of the county. If y'all have any great ideas, we'd love to have one. So with that being said, can we get a motion for, Timothy Crabtree?
Make a motion for Timothy Crabtree.
Motion by Commissioner Shields, second by Commissioner Higdon, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, then we have, application, by Dr. Mickey Henson for the Macon County Planning Board. Carl, liaison. How many seats do you have?
After this,
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gillespie, second by Commissioner Higdon, all in favor?
Aye.
And I think we received, he left, I think we received 2 today for Health Board, we'll be reviewing.
Yes, I'm gonna
next
forward
month.
those on to, the health board and
Okay.
bring them back in for this board in October.
Okay. Do we have reason for a closed session
Yes,
tonight?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we do.
For the reasoning of?
We've got 3 matters that need to be addressed. We need to have closed session under 143, 318.11, 3 and 5 to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to receive instructions from this board concerning the purchase of real property. I
do anticipate action.
You do anticipate
afterwards.
action?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. All right, can I get a motion to go into closed session, please?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Higdon, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll call our meeting back to order.
3 minutes to Gunsmoke.
We have 2 items. Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney, or one of y'all want to lead us
Yeah, I'll be
in
happy
either
to.
direction?
The board had instructed the county manager and myself to have some communications with Rena Stauffer and her husband Rodney Stauffer concerning the possible purchase of property in Highlands, North Carolina. Mr. and Ms. Stauffer had indicated a willingness to do so, and I have prepared a proposed agreement for their consideration, sent that to them. They have in turn signed that document, and so I am presenting that to the board. This is for the property described in Book Q-32, page 1791 through 1792. And Mr. Chairman, you might be able to better describe for the public what we're talking about. It's a 1.74 acre parcel. Purchase price is $71,880, which is the tax value that we have on that property.
This property adjoins the Buck Creek Recreation Facility in Highlands, and it's flat. It'll be, if we can proceed and get this closed, it's going to be an outstanding future recreational facility for that end of the county.
If the board's inclined to accept their offer to sell, I have the 2 originals there, and we would need to authorize our chairman to sign on behalf of the county, and we would need to authorize a budget amendment to allow for the earnest money to be paid. There's a $500 earnest money deposit that would be paid, and I had recommended a survey. Lori, how much do you think we should set aside there in the way of a budget amendment?
5.
Not to exceed 5,000. Okay.
We get a motion with the same, please.
Motion with all those things that the county attorney just listed, authorizing that we enter into due diligence period.
Second.
And by motion by Commissioner Bill, second by Commissioner Shields, all in favor?
Aye.
From contingency,
Yes.
5,000.
Gentlemen, one other brief matter. Pleased to report to you that there is a pending lawsuit that the county brought concerning a nuisance issue against Randy Dion Collins, William Stephen Shepherd, Dusty Leanne Collins, Macon County file number 19 CVS 300. Myself, as well as personnel from the Macon County Sheriff's Department and the SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, have negotiated what we believe to be a satisfactory consent judgment and final order of abatement. I've prepared that. I would recommend approval of that document, and by myself and the chairman, and authorize the 2 of us to sign on behalf of the county and present the same to the appropriate judge for entry. It has already been signed by the defendants.
We need a motion on the same, please.
I make a motion the document be approved as read.
A motion by Commissioner Shields. Second.
I'd look to Mr. Gillespie, he has more invested here than anybody.
And he's in a situation though.
You know, skip it. I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got anything else? Got a motion to adjourn?
That's all.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion by Commissioner Higdon, second by Commissioner Shields, all in favor?
Aye.
Next
Everybody
meeting.
have safe travels home.
October.